Hey guys, welcome to Submission Radio. It's the 28th of June. Dennis Shkaratov here with Kasper Rosalowski. A weekend of crazy knockouts, Cass.
It was definitely a crazy weekend. Bellator 139, UFC Fight Night 70. Much to talk about, especially those crazy knockouts. We've got quite a few guests on the show as well. We're like those sexy uncles of yours that always come down to see you with the awesome presents. We've got, here's the presents this week. We've got none other than Don Frye. The Frye himself is returning to Submission Radio, and you know things always get fun when that happens. Dennis Bermudez is also going to be on the show. I think this guy has been a little bit forgotten, flown under the radar. He's fighting Jeremy Stephens at UFC 189, and he's hoping to possibly take on Conor McGregor if everybody else somehow gets their legs broken. And then we've got Ken Shamrock. I mean, he just fought a Bellator 138. Pretty controversial stuff. A lot of people are saying the fight was fixed. We've got him on the show, and I believe this is one of the first, if not the first, interviews he's done since. And then, for those of you who've been checking out our techniques of the week, I know we've been going in a more BJJ direction, but there was a time only a few months ago we had a lot of MMA techniques done by the man himself, Shawn Davies, MMA, I believe head MMA instructor at Malvern MMA. Dennis, where you train, and the man, he's a great fighter. He's had some good amateur fights, I believe, like pretty much all stoppages in the first round. He's going pro. He's going to be making his debut at Hex Fight Series 3, so we're going to have him on the show. This is a very brief chat with good old Shawn, just so you guys can get to know the man before he makes his debut. So it's going to be a nice juicy show.
That's right, guys. And I mean, people are saying, what's going to happen? Two Dennises in one show. We've had Dennis Bermudez on before, but people say two Dennises don't make a right. Well, I can't give you guys that answer. You're going to have to listen to the program. Like Kasper said, we've got Ken Shamrock, Dennis Bermudez, Don Frye. Don first, then we got Dennis, and then finally Ken Shamrock, if you guys are wondering on the order. And obviously, Cass mentioned it just before. We've got a lot of exciting things on the channel, like the technique of the week that Shawn has done for us previously. If you haven't yet subscribed and you're listening to this on YouTube, or you want to jump on the YouTube after this and check it out, youtube.com/Submission Radio AU. We've got some cool stuff coming to the channel that Kasper is going to talk about near the end of the episode. Sort of a different direction, something fun that we've got coming out. It's going to be very exciting on the channel. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. And also Twitter @SubmissionAUS.
Yeah, we sort of haven't been saying this in a while, but just as a reminder, if you're sort of new to the program, we are available on pretty much every podcast what's the word, podcast service there is. So, you know, your Stitcher, your iTunes, your TuneIn, and of course SoundCloud. I think SoundCloud only since like the start of the year or so that we've been around on that. But pretty much anywhere where podcasts can be found, we are there. Don't forget, if you enjoy the show, feel free to give us a rating, especially on iTunes. We love getting those 5-star ratings. No pressure. You don't have to. Give us whatever you think we're worth. But, you know, we see all the ratings that people give us, and we absolutely love them. We really appreciate them. Sometimes we're shocked about the detail that people go into about what they think about the show, and it just absolutely melts our hearts. Cannot tell you guys how much we appreciate, you know, you guys taking the time to do that. So it means a lot. But I'm not going to waste any more time because we do have a big show. Our first guest is on the line, and Dennis is going to introduce him.
All right, guys, our next guest is truly one of the baddest men in MMA, the UFC Ultimate 1996 tournament winner, UFC 8 tournament winner, and one half of Wrestling Observer's 2002 Fight of the Year. Things are about to get a lot manlier here on Submission Radio because Don Frye is back. Don, welcome back to Submission Radio.
Hey, boys, how y'all doing? It's nice to be back in Australia.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have you on the show. We always enjoy when you come on. Now, we know you're driving at the moment. We know you do a lot of acting these days, a lot of Hollywood roles. Just curious, where might you be driving to today?
Well, Stuart Wilson, he just picked me up at the airport here in Burbank, Hollywood, and right now we're in a bar, and we're going to discuss the next Bruce Willis movie. Stuart's the stunt double for Bruce Willis in the last 8 years, last 15 films.
Hey.
Oh, wow. So that's pretty exciting. I mean, we were just going to ask you, how's Hollywood treating you? Apart from this project, what other stuff do you have coming out, Don?
Tomorrow we start filming the next Predator's Predictions. We're making a comeback. So we're getting on that. Recently I made a movie called The Diggers, and I'm up for something else, some other role. I forget what the hell it is, but I'm up for that. So
There was also, I think, what was it, Chuck Hank and the San Diego Twins as well? You doing that one as well, Don?
Yeah, we did. It was pretty sad. They're editing that, cleaning that thing up to start to get that out now.
Well, we're super excited about the Predators predictions. I think everybody's been waiting for it. It's been a while since you've done one. How did it all come together? Why did you make the decision to do Predators predictions again?
Stuart, like I said, Stuart Wilson, he's a producer of the show, and we just got together and were drinking and talking, and we got tired of all these pretty boys in their Kmart, Walmart suits, and their greased back hair, and goddamn, they got the worst hairdos anybody ever seen in my life, man. Jesus Louise, they don't know what they're talking about in the fight game anyways. Everybody's wonderful. Everybody's a sweetheart. Everybody's at the top of their game, and everybody's going to be a tough fight. This is the hardest fight ever for this guy, and this guy will be the biggest threat, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, come on, man. Just to say, this guy's an idiot. Cain Velasquez did not train properly for the fight. He's a moron, and he got his ass kicked, and he deserved to have his ass kicked.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you bring that up. I really want to get your opinion. I mean, a lot of people aren't really giving Werdum much credit. They're saying it's sort of a situation where Cain didn't look very good, and Werdum capitalized on it. Do you agree with him? Do you think it was a situation where we didn't see the same Cain Velasquez? And why don't you think we saw the same Cain?
Because he's an idiot. Jeez Louise, you're supposed to be the world heavyweight champion. You don't have enough sense to go somewhere and acclimate it, to decline it, or the altitude. Jeez, he's training at sea level. He's going to fight at 7,800 feet. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell you gotta get in there 1 or 2 months beforehand. And if he's not smart enough, at least his double trainer should be smart enough to tell him that.
Yeah, well, apparently Javier Mendez was really trying to get on Cain's case to go there early, and I think Cain was a little bit reluctant from what we heard. What do you think? If they have a rematch at sea level, do you think Cain would look better? Do you think he'd perform better, or do you think Werdum takes it again in the rematch?
He doesn't deserve a rematch.
All right, well, there you go. I mean, an interesting thought there from Don Frye. Now, some other news just hit the MMA community recently was Jose Aldo obviously getting injured. The huge fight between him and Conor McGregor July 18th at UFC 189 now up for questioning. Obviously, Aldo's ribs are hurt. What did you think when you heard the news, Don?
I'm trying to figure out if he really got hurt or if he's just he's screwing with Conor McGregor, Conor been pulling all that nonsense this whole time, trying to screw with Jose Aldo. Maybe Jose's just screwing with Conor. Wouldn't that be funny? Conor goes and sits down for a week or two. Thinking, wow, look at that. He goes and sits down for a week or two, thinking the fight's off. And Jose all of a sudden says, everything's good, or I'm ready to go.
Sneak attack. That's interesting. Well, let me ask you, because, we've heard a lot of fighters talk about rib injuries and how bad they are, about how you can't sleep, can't cough, and things like that. Have you ever had a rib injury, Don? Can you sort of tell us a bit about it? Is it as bad as they say?
It's miserable. I'll tell you what, it's miserable having a rib injury. But, it's part of the game. And if you're man up, you just keep going. I mean, I heard Dan Shea back in 1986 or something like that. He won the NCAA's of wrestling against Dwayne Goldman and the 190 pounders. And he said, I popped the rib earlier and I had to pop it back in and felt bad. But he kept going. Dan Shea's just a horse.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I mean, a lot of people are saying, what should the UFC do if they should keep Conor McGregor on the card? A lot of people are worried that if they put him up against a wrestler in the division, he might get beat and the fight just may never happen. What would you do if you were in the UFC's position, Don? Would you keep Conor McGregor on the card, or would you take him off the shelf until Aldo's ready to fight?
No, they got to keep him. They spent so much money marketing this fight. I mean, come on, let's do what they do every other time. Give Conor McGregor a belt, right? They got the interim championship, so now it's belt versus belt. Wow, that's something different, right? If you're worried about getting beat by a wrestler or by someone else, then you shouldn't be the champion anyways.
Yeah, it's certainly the thought going around the MMA community. Now, let's talk about another event that happened last weekend. One of your prior opponents and a guy that you've had some great history with, Ken Shamrock, stepped in the cage with Kimbo Slice. Just want to get your thoughts on the fight, Don. What did you think of it all?
like Ken ain't been the same since I whooped him. You know that? He hasn't been 10% of what he was after I whooped him. And, he went in there, he saw a paycheck, and he took the paycheck. I think Ken, he ain't firing on all cylinders anymore.
Yeah, I mean, physically, Ken, I mean, he didn't look like an elite MMA fighter, and I say that with all due respect, and we're going to have Ken later on the program, but I just want to ask, you say you went in there to take a paycheck, one of the biggest controversies, and Joe Rogan made a few headlines when he said that he believes the fight was fake. A lot of people share those sentiments. What do you think? Did it look fake at all to you?
No, I don't think it's fake. I think Ken just completely overestimated Kimbo. I think Kimbo brought more to the game than anybody expected. And, it just surprised the hell out of all of us. I'd like to throw my hat in the ring to be the next guy to fight Kimbo.
Hey.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question because you brought that up last time you were on the show a few months ago. I mean, Kimbo is looking for a second fight. If Scott Coker dialed your number and offered you a deal that you couldn't refuse, would you step in to be Kimbo's second fight, Don?
Well, heck yeah, man. I'd take that money. And buy me a new horse trailer.
Well, we know how much you love horses. Scott Coker, if you listen to this show for whatever reason, Bellator 140 or possibly 141, Don Frye versus Kimbo. What did you think about Kimbo's performance in the fight? You say Ken Shamrock underestimated him. A lot of people said that Kimbo looked a little bit, not as fast. He looked out of shape. What do you think? Do you think he's past his prime, or do you think he still looked decent?
I really didn't see it. I just saw the 5 seconds of the knockout. That's all I.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, just to paint a picture, Ken Shamrock actually got on his back and had the rear naked choke all the way across his throat. It looked like at one point. So it was an interesting back and forth fight. And hopefully, this fight gets put together. If you did get a shot at Kimbo, Don, I mean, this is an interesting question. What would you do with it, and how would you see the fight playing out?
Oh, I'd knock Kimbo out. It'd probably be about one of those fights, be one of the fastest knockouts in UFC history or Bellator history once again,
Well, there you go. And we know that recently you had a few back issues, Don. Before we sort of talk about you, possibly hypothetically getting back in the cage, how's the back feeling? You told us last time that Czech Congo came around, gave you this machine, and you were super happy with it. How's the back feeling? Are you 100% now?
Back feels great. Not 100%, but I'll tell you what, I'm better than I ever was for the last decade, so there's nothing to complain about.
I'll tell you what, Don, that will be a very exciting stuff. Now, we spoke about Kimbo and his prime. Just want to go to another fighter who's in his prime right now and is going through some controversy, Jon Jones. Now, he obviously had the hit-and-run incident that a lot of people already know about, and just wanted to get your thoughts on the whole situation. Do you think he'll be able to return and be the UFC champion once again, Don?
You know what? He doesn't deserve to be, right? If with these new drug testing rules and guidelines that they have, the first time you get caught with steroids, it's $2,000 fine and 3 months suspension, and then the second time you get caught, it's a 6-month suspension or 2 years suspension. $10,000 the third time you're gone. Well, shit. Sorry, he got all three in one time, man. He did it all at once. If the UFC wants to act like a legit organization and legitimize the sport, Mr. Jones is done.
That's interesting. It'd be crazy if Jon Jones never returned to fighting. I'm sure the UFC would take him with open arms. As a pro.
That's the problem. That's why it'll end up being seen as a legitimate sport or organization, is because they'll roll over and take the buck.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's true, and that's a lot of criticism they've been receiving as well. As a pro fighter for most of your career, when it comes to guys like, say, Jon Jones, you yourself, Don, how much does your personal life really have an effect on your fighting performance?
It's everything. One controls the other, in all aspects. When you're training, you've got to dedicate yourself for 12 weeks, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 12 weeks. And shit. And the thing is, your wife or your husband or your spouse or your boyfriend, girlfriend, what have you, they have to be on the same page. They got to learn to keep their goddamn mouth shut and stay out of your way. And they got to behave themselves and to not cause any problems. And same thing with your children, you know.
Yes.
Everybody's got to be
I was going to say, if only the Submission Radio Crew's families thought the same way. They're always getting our way, Don. Now, I mean, speaking with Jon, just for a couple of questions on the topic, I mean, he's had a couple of run-ins with issues. Obviously, he tested positive for cocaine when going into a fight. He also had the hit and run. Do you think he can turn it all around and come back? Do you think he has what it takes to get his life in order to be an elite fighter again, Don?
Wow. You know what? Only he knows that, man. Only he knows that.
Well, let's talk about you, Don. We read a few interesting stories recently about you. You were speaking before about how long you train for a fight and how, your personal life is everything. We read actually on Sherdog, funnily enough, that your good friend Dan Seven once organized for you to fight, and it was supposed to be very high-end, classy, and you were supposed to be there to entertain the rich. However, when you got there, it was an entirely different story. I believe you found out in the limo. Can you tell us about that story?
Yeah, Dan set up a fight for me. This was back in 95, and he said, well, Don, he told me, I said, you want to fight? He says, there's a fight in Atlanta, and he says, for these rich people. He said, it's a black tie eating gown affair. He said, it's caviar and champagne, and the fights will be the entertainment for the rich people, And I said, sure, Dan, it's supposed to be like $5,000 back then. And I said, yeah, sure. So they flew me over there, put me up in the Hilton or the Hyatt or something. So it was looking pretty good. And then next day they picked me up and they're driving over there. And I'm in the back seat. And the guy turns around in front and says, oh, by the way, we can't pay you.
Wow.
I got real quiet, real fast. He says, do you still want to fight? I came all the way to Atlanta. I'm going to hit somebody. If it ain't somebody inside the cage, it's going to be you, buddy. So we kept going, and we went behind this building, and went to a warehouse, and we got out of the car and walked into this warehouse, and they got those blue plastic tarps on strings, decked out. As dressing rooms, and there wasn't a piece of caviar or
Caviar was eaten.
or champagne in the whole building. There's beer bottles and potato chips.
Wow.
Wow, I mean, a lot of fighters these days complain about pay and the Reebok deal and this and that. However, I mean, just from that experience and many experiences and a lot of fighters at the beginning of MMA, a lot of people didn't get paid. Just wondering, was that your only experience where you fought for free, Don, or did you have a bunch of them going through your MMA career?
I had a couple more. These guys are bitching and whining about this Reebok deal. Well, here's the deal. Work harder, get better, and they'll pay you. Earn it. Try that. I know it's scary, but hard work and intelligence and it helps you earn something.
Well, speaking of earning things, Don, a lot of people they want to basically see they want to see the Don Frye. We heard that, or we want to get an update on yourself. The word on the street is that you've been invited to the UFC Fan Fest from July 10th to the July 11th. Is this confirmed? Will fans get a chance to meet Don Frye? What's happening with that?
Yeah, it's the funniest thing you ever heard in your life. I got a phone call one day, and some guy with a British accent says, "Hey, Don, I'm Art. What's his name? Ant Evans from the UFC." Yeah, sure you are, kid. He says, Dana White wants to invite you to the UFC Fan Fest. And I started laughing. I said, "Are you right? You sure Dana wants to invite me?" He said, "No, I'm serious." He said he looked at the list and looked at Dana and said, "You sure you want me to invite Don Frye?" He said, "Yeah." So I got my itinerary today. It started looking a little shaky there. Haven't heard from him in a week or two. But I got the itinerary today, so it looks like I'm on the way.
Well, there you go, guys. You can look forward to meeting Don Frye over there. It's going to be an amazing event with a bunch of great fighters, but I think Don Frye really puts the cherry on top of the cake. Don, we have a couple of fan questions before we let you go. The first one is from Derek Rightcross. He goes, Don, I heard a funny story from Japan, that you had an Asian fan that found you wherever you went and apparently even wanted your underwear. What's the story there? Is there somebody in Japan running around with a pair of Don Frye boxers?
No, wait till I get the hell out of here. Yeah, this guy, this tall, fat kid, probably about, I don't know, 17 years old. He'd always be there with stuff for me to sign, so I would always sign it. And then one day he wanted my underwear. I thought, you want my shorts, right? And he said, no, your underwear. I was like, get the hell out of here now.
Wow, I wish people would ask us for our underwear. I'd probably give it to them. Next fan question is from Slobberknocker. Hey, Don, I'm a huge fan. I was hoping you could tell the listeners the story that was recently posted on your Facebook page about a crazy night out you had with Brian Johnson where you chased down a couple of guys in a cab. I'm actually excited for this one myself. What's the story there, Don?
Oh, yeah. Brian and I, we spent a lot of money and a lot of time in a bar one night. And, I was talking to the owner, and Brian turned and walked out, and next thing I know, I hear some bottles crashing, and I go, just a minute, I go up there, and Brian had knocked down a few people, and it's summertime, so he's in flip-flops, and he kicked them off, and he's standing in shattered glass like a dummy, and so we continued to fight, and I chased these two guys down into a cab, and they locked the door, thought they were free. So I punched through the window and pulled them out and made a mess out of those guys. And next thing I know, I got the Tokyo police force on top of me. And next thing I know, we're in the police station. And then about 10 minutes later, we're all just snapping pictures. You know?
Wow.
You know? They sent me a bill for the taxi window.
So what happened? The police released you because they were Don Frye fans. They liked the mustache.
Yeah, absolutely. Mustache talked his way out of it, baby.
Wow. I wish we had mustaches like that. Well, let me ask you, Don, because, obviously you spent your fair share of time in pro wrestling. We always love hearing pro wrestlers talk about stories sort of in the real situations. Do you have any other situations where you were maybe around other pro wrestlers and you got into a bit of a scuffle or a situation like that?
No. The Japanese fans, the people we got in a fight with were Iranian drug dealers. So they weren't Japanese.
Wow.
And the Japanese fans are very polite. They're very polite people. And, they'll stand outside a restaurant while you're eating. They'll stand out there for 1 or 2 hours, 3 hours until you're done. And then they'll ask you your autograph. They won't come up and interrupt you while you're eating like happens at other places.
Now, Don, before we let you go, we want to have a chat about your new T-shirt. Now, we've heard about this T-shirt. We had a look at it. It looks awesome. And for fans here in Australia, New Zealand, and listening around the world, you have to go on triggerapparel.com to get it. How did this come about, and can we expect to see more Don Frye T-shirts in the future?
Yeah, Trigger Apparel. Michael, I can't say Michael's last name because he's Russian, but he's Russian-born, but he served in the U.S. Marines. God bless him. And so he's more of a man than I'll ever be, just for that. And now he's over there in Oklahoma City, and he's got a clothing line going, clothing company, and he donates a certain percentage of the money to injured soldiers. So I'm all for this, man. It's a great company. It's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm just on the website now, actually. It's looking pretty good. You got Don Frye Vintage Warrior, and we see Ken Shamrock's got one as well. Don, we're going to let you go. Don't forget to follow Don Frye on Twitter at Don Frye Fighter. And, of course, go to Trigger Apparel and check out his shirt. And before we do let you go, Don, just to give the listeners a bit of a teaser, what's the first Predator prediction that you're going to be doing? And do you have any others planned?
We got 2 on the way, partner, and we got a new thing. We're going to do 189, 190, and we got something special in store.
Is it? I know you're doing 190. Is it too early to get a teaser of Ronda Rousey versus Betch Kahea?
Oh my God! Come on, jeez Louise.
Armbar in the first round.
Do we even need to think about that one? Come on.
Well, you tweeted out that to get the Predators predictions going, you needed some women and some money. So we're happy to see that you guys were able to find those things.
Yeah, we got it, partner. We got them, and we're rolling high.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to check out Predators predictions. Don, enjoy the rest of your day. We'll let you have fun with Stuart and enjoy the drinks and, of course, the Bruce Willis movie. We'll chat to you soon. Thanks for coming on the show.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot, partner. Talk to you later.
This is Diego Sanchez, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guest is UFC featherweight and owner of multiple post-fight awards, including Submission of the Night, Fight of the Night, and 2 Performance of the Night bonuses. He holds victories over guys such as Clay Guida, Max Holloway, Steven Seiler, and Jimmy Hedges, and he will be taking on Jeremy Stevens at the very stacked UFC 189. Dennis Bermudez, welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm feeling good, man.
Well, we haven't heard much from you since your fight against Ricardo Lamas. Give us an update. What have you been doing with yourself apart from getting ready for this fight, and what's new in the life of Dennis Bermudez?
Man, I've been training since November. To be honest with you, I just haven't been, super vocal. After a loss, man, it sucks. You just, and it's almost like nobody can say the right thing to you. It's almost like someone died. It's gonna be okay. Like, no, it's not. Thurston's dead, or like, no, it's not. Like, I lost. It's and for a fighter or even a wrestler or anybody who does a single man sport where it's just you and there's nowhere to point fingers or anything like that, it's just like you work so hard and for that, and you sacrifice so much, and when that outcome doesn't happen the way you want it to go, it's like heartbreaking. And for me, man, when I was wrestling in high school and college, I would see guys lose and just see them be totally okay with it. And that used to drive me bonkers. And I'm just like, how can you even, why are you smiling? What is wrong? It's just crazy to me. But, I mean, I'm super hard on myself, and I always have been, and I think that's probably the reason why I am where I am today.
Yeah, well, I think anytime we see a guy lose a tough fight and really give his opponent respect and not absolutely lose his mind in the cage, we have a lot of respect for those guys. So, we've never been on an 8-fight winning streak, but we understand where you're coming from. And, just wondering, the fact that you were sort of on that cusp, I feel like you were almost overlooked as far as a title shot, a title contention. That was kind of the fight that was going to get you in there. You had that big, meaty 8-fight win streak. Was that even harder for you that, you had that win streak snapped and it was almost like starting from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough, going to that fight a little bit. It's like, you gotta win, get this win. And, they'll start talking about title fights. They'll start, and it's just like, maybe that added up pressure. There's a lot of elements that go into fighting and stuff like that, But in terms of being overlooked for a title shot, look, I mean, yes, I fought guys that are super talented, but, I mean, because if you're fighting UFC, you're super talented, but just some of the guys I was fighting and beating weren't talked about a lot, so that's why I kind of went under the radar. But, I mean, looking back at it, man, it's all good just because it, I was still green to the sport, I think now I'm really coming into my own, though. And I am ready now. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, from a loss, a lot of great fighters have learned a lot from a loss and really, changed themselves, come back even stronger. And I'm just wondering, what was the biggest thing that you learned from your fight with Ricardo, Dennis?
I mean, I definitely have a lot of respect for Ricardo. I did before the fight. There's something in me was just like, go out there and get it. I was just overzealous and just over anxious. I think I just, I got 15 minutes with the guy, but I push a pace like I'm trying to end it in the first minute. And I think, he's a sharp dude. He just shot that jab right down the middle. I walked right into it, hit me right on the sweet spot, and I mean, do I think he's a better fighter than me? No. I'll rematch him tomorrow. I just think I got caught, and it happens in the sport, and so I don't let it, I don't dwell on it. I don't, just, all right, dude, pick up your, pick it up from where you left off and then get it moving again.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty much what you have to do. You know, you're a young guy. You've got a lot of fights ahead of you. This fight against Jeremy Stephens, would you say that in a way it's kind of like do or die? Because a win catapults you back into the mix straight away and gives you back some of that momentum, whereas a loss would really make you start from the beginning?
Yeah, a loss would definitely send me back a ways, I think. But yeah, Jeremy Stephens is a fighter that's been around for a very long time, and he's, you know, if you probably know Jeremy Stephens. You know, he fought at 155, which at one point in time was and still is a booming weight class. But I think the 145 weight class is the new booming weight class, you know? I mean, he's been around forever. He's a veteran. So in the MMA world, he's kind of famous, you know, if you will. You know, so a win over him puts me over, you know, well, he beat Clay Guida. He beat, you know, Jeremy Stephens, who's right there with Clay, you know. So, you know, he's someone to you know, he's beating these veterans. He's ready.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, you're making your comeback, not on a fight night, you know, not on a small event, but on one of the biggest cards of the year at UFC 189. And obviously you've got Jose Aldo and Conor McGregor fighting at the top there. You know, how does it feel knowing that you're making a comeback in front of that many people? Because you have a very good spot on the card, Dennis.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, every card I fight on, I want to fight on the biggest card of the year. You know, I want to be the smallest name on the card. You know, so when I get out there and, you know, everyone's looking for the big names, but they're looking at the small, you know, small guys too. And then after my fight, I want to be like, who the hell is that little Tasmanian devil? That guy is awesome. I want to know more about him. I want to, and, you know, that's what I look like. I like kind of being overlooked. I kind of like being in the shadows. I like being the underdog. So, and I like being on a card where people think I'm not the best fighter there. So when it's my turn to dance, it, you know, not only am I trying to beat the guy, but I'm trying to beat the guy and in the most, in any way possible. You know, it's like when I get in there, it's action packed. You know, and I don't go in there with intentions of like, yeah, let's get crazy and jump around, and, you know, I'm just like, go in there and get the job done, and don't stop until it's done. You know, so it just comes out with pretty exciting fights.
Yeah. Well, okay, give us the breakdown. How are you looking to get the job done? What would you say you do better than Jeremy, and where will you look to capitalize and get him?
I'm a way better wrestler than Jeremy Stephens. So, I mean, you know, changing levels, making him think I'm going to take him down, hitting him up top, going downstairs. You know, my leg kicks are great. I mean, I just think I dominate him in every aspect of the sport. You know, from striking to wrestling to jiu-jitsu, I'm better than him everywhere. If we stand there and we hit a punching machine that calculates exactly how hard we hit, maybe he'll beat me there, and that's it.
Well, yeah, certainly. And I mean, Jeremy, he's seen his fair share of adversity quite recently. Now he's on a 2-fight losing streak. And I mean, at one point, he was one of the most talked about guys in the division he was fighting in at the time. Do you think his back is up against the wall a little bit? Do you think he might be fighting a more fired up Jeremy Stephens? Because who knows what's going to happen to him after this fight if he loses?
Yeah, he's definitely got a lot of pressure on him, you know? And pressure can definitely make guys fold. I'm looking to go in there and just flow and just do what I do and realistically try to have a good time with it, making him look stupid.
Sure. Well, I mean, we definitely can't wait for that fight. We got to talk about something, because there was some sickening, disturbing, tear-jerking news the other day. Jose Aldo, the main event, might be out of the main event, might be off the card. First off, how did you find out about it? What were you doing, and what was your first immediate reaction?
I just finished working out, hitting mitts to my striking coach, and my manager called me and said, "Hey, dude, like, from what I'm seeing right now all over the internet, that Jose Aldo might be out. Let's make a push to see if you can fight McGregor." I was like, all right. Like, do you want me to tweet right now? He's like, yep. Let's put together a tweet and we figure it out there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And obviously, Jose is now going to be back in the fight. They're saying that he's going to fight on. But you were training for Jeremy Stephens. I mean, who knows? You could have possibly gotten the shot. You were very, very close to it. I mean, how would you see a fight between you and McGregor playing out if you did get the match? because you weren't really doing a training camp for McGregor.
Wouldn't have changed. I mean, maybe I would try and bring in some guys that will throw some stupid kicks or whatever. But I mean, for the most part, I kind of don't train for guys. I train to be the baddest dude on the planet. If I'm the baddest dude on the planet, then they have to try and beat me. You know what I'm saying? I'm going out there, I'm putting a blanket over a guy, I'm trying to suffocate him.
And I think most of the guys that we get on the show pretty much have the same idea. It's very rare that people say that they, and obviously there's guys that do it, but nowadays there's not too many people that are saying, look, I've got a specific game plan. You know, speaking of the other guys, there are 5 other guys other than yourself that also want this fight if for whatever reason, you know, Jose Aldo does pull out. The list includes guys like Frankie Edgar, Uriah Faber, your opponent Jeremy Stephens, Joseph Duffy, and of course Chad Mendes, who is currently the front runner. Let me ask you, you know, for everybody who's listening right now, why do you deserve the shot more than these guys? You know, or at least why do you think you'd make the best choice for the fight?
I'm already on the card. I've already been training for, you know, over 2 months for this card, and I'm the highest ranked 45er on the card my next guy is fighting.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, the interesting news that did come out is if Jose can't go on to fight, the UFC has chosen Chad Mendes to be the backup fight for McGregor. I mean, it's some pretty recent news that a lot of people might have not read about. And some of the MMA community feel like Frankie Edgar might have been passed over once again in the situation. What do you think? Do you think Frankie Edgar got passed over once again, Dennis?
From my sources, it was Frankie Edgar has first dibs. Chad Mendes had second dibs if Frankie Edgar didn't want it, and Chad Mendes already said yes.
Right, okay. So, I mean, the UFC made the official statement, so it's funny, everybody's sources are being mixed up, but their official statement is that Chad will get the fight if Aldo doesn't fight on. Do you think that's a bit weird?
Is it weird?
Well, considering Frankie Edgar apparently was the front runner.
The highest ranked, is Chad still the highest ranked 45er on the champion?
That's a good question. I'm not too sure. We haven't looked at the rankings. But just
the rankings mean 0 to me, so I don't really pay attention to them. So I'm just trying to think, you know.
Well, I mean, it's a good question. Let's have a look here. I mean, I've got the rankings up in front of me as we speak. Chad Mendes is the number 1 contender. Frankie Edgar is number 2. And I mean, it's a highly debated ranking system because a lot of people feel like Frankie Edgar should be number 1.
I don't know. It's tough.
And I mean, Conor McGregor's ranked number 3, by the way. Conor McGregor's ranked number 3.
Well, there you go. And he's in the main event. He's got the shot.
Right.
Well, I mean, I guess what we're saying is because your sources said that Frankie Edgar had the dibs unless he didn't want it. But all of a sudden, Chad Mendes is in there. Like, I don't know. What do you make of that? That seems kind of...
I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I think, just looking at their body types, that Frankie Edgar walks around a little lighter than Chad Mendes. So, I mean, that maybe had a little bit of I don't know.
Well, I mean, look, there is always the possibility that for whatever reason, you know, let's say Jose Aldo's out, and let's say, this is MMA, there's still, I don't know, quite a few weeks away from the fight. Let's say Chad Mendes gets injured, you know, he could be out of there, and then the UFC looking for someone else. At this point, are you like hiring detectives and private eyes to go around spiking those guys' food, so they're all eliminated one by one, and then you'll be the only fit featherweight left to face McGregor?
No, man, I'm just trying to stay... just focus on the task at hand. You know, I talked to my manager. He said, hey, let's make a push. We kind of made a push, and then, you know, we kind of got the news that you were hearing, you know, either Frankie Edgar or Chad Mendes are going to get it, or in that order, you know, like pretty much like, hey, Dennis, you're not, you know, this sucks, you're not going to get it. Like, all right, back to, you know, focusing on Jeremy Stephens.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I mean, you got a big fight ahead of you. Just wondering, what did you make of everybody calling Conor McGregor out? Because that was one of the funniest things that a lot of the MMA fans were talking about. As soon as Aldo was injured, obviously you were one of the first guys to tweet it out, but we went through and counted how many people were calling him out, and just everybody that could started calling Conor McGregor out. Did you get a bit of a laugh about that?
I mean, at the end of the day, this is a business, you know? Like, stepping up like that, the UFC does take care of you a little bit financially. You know, like, hey, thank you. Thank you for saving the card, you know, because, you know, they get the business too. And two, like, going back in time, you know, not too long ago, nobody really knew. I mean, you know, people knew who Anderson Silva was, but Anderson Silva wasn't the GOAT until Chael Sonnen made him famous.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you go out there and fight McGregor, who's already hyped to fight up and beat him, he makes you famous. You know, so I mean, beating McGregor makes you way more valuable. And on top of it, I mean, one else might say, "Hey, thank you for stepping up to take the fight. Here's a nice little check for you," you know.
I think, it's funny because if you beat Conor McGregor as opposed to Jose Aldo, who is the champion, you're almost going to be more famous just because of Conor's notoriety. But it also seems like a lot of the wrestlers are chomping at the bit to take on Conor McGregor because at this point he's never faced an elite wrestler. It almost seems like a lot of guys... I don't want to say it seems like Conor's easy pickings because he's not. He's a talented guy and, you know, it'd be a tough fight. But it almost seems like a lot of the wrestlers are just super excited to go against Conor McGregor because they feel like they may be the guy. Like, if you got the fight, you may be the guy to expose him and beat him. Whereas if it was Jose Aldo, guys may have sort of taken a bit of a backseat and said, look, I'll take a longer training camp. You know, would you agree that there's a little bit of that going on?
I mean that on top of the whole famous aspect, you know, and I mean here from a wrestler's point of view, a striker can only hit you hard if he plants his feet, right? You can't knock him out tiptoeing around and just flicking punches, you know. So as soon as you plant, you're very easy to get taken down. Thank you for putting all your weight on one foot that I'm going to grab. You know, so it's just. So then once you establish a takedown game a few times, you're taking the guy down a few times, then you have to fake it. And then they start second-guessing their striking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the situation that everybody's talking about. Now, final question about this whole Conor McGregor thing. I mean, Aldo is injured, but it's not as bad as once thought. What do you think? What's your prediction? Does it change? Do you still think Aldo could beat McGregor with this injury that he's going into the fight with?
Dude, I don't know what is going on exactly. I hope it's not some boxing bullshit. Because I really, I like the sport, and Dana White has even said it before on fights where guys have won where they shouldn't have won. He stepped up to the mic and said, "You didn't win that fight." Like, it sickens me that this commission said you won that fight, but you know what I mean? And he's like, I'm embarrassed kind of doing business in this with this commission because they put on bullshit like that. I like that. A sport where it's fucking, even the NFL, taking air out of balls and shit like that. Come on. I mean, Aldo is a bad dude. He's a tough dude. I mean, McGregor he's good too, man. I don't know. I talked with some of the guys today and in the gym. If McGregor wins, it sets up an automatic rematch because Jose Aldo wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
And, so on and so forth, Because at the end of the day, it's about, it's about money. But I don't know. If I was in Jose Aldo, I mean, I don't know. I've had bruised ribs before, and, I couldn't move for, 2 weeks. So... maybe he's just totally taking that time to rest. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We'll see. And I do agree. I think if McGregor does beat Aldo, considering how long he's been champion, they'll probably do an automatic rematch. Now, we're going to start wrapping up the interview. We're going to give you some fan questions, Dennis, because we told the fans that you coming on the show, and they threw us a whole bunch of questions that they wanted asked. So we just picked a few of them. First one comes from Stranger Danger. Dennis, it seems like the NYC, the New York City bill, failed yet again, making MMA still illegal in the state. Being a proud New York native, what was your reaction when you heard the news?
It sucks because I have been actually going to Albany with Lorenzo Fertitas and his team and trying to push legalizing MMA and that it didn't pass. It's just like, man. Now, because as a professional athlete, anybody from New York who's a professional athlete is like, yeah, I want to compete in Madison Square Garden. That's like a dream.
and for that dream, being further away. Well, I mean, it's definitely getting closer, but I mean, I thought this year we had him.
Yeah, and I mean, there was almost a card being planned. I mean, Luke Rockhold versus Chris Weidman was going to headline it. Everyone was super excited, and I don't even think it went through to be considered. So it's just ridiculous. And I think all MMA fans, if they can, worldwide even, including the ones in New York, need to email whoever they can to show this injustice. And I mean, we've experienced here in Melbourne ourselves, Melbourne, Australia, with it just being legalized recently and it being legal in a ring and not a cage. So we know your pain, Dennis. Now, last fan question here, and it comes from a username that I'm going to have issues pronouncing. Scombolis, I think, something like that. I'm sorry if I butchered it. He asks, you put together an impressive streak and were showing improvement across the board before the Llama setback. You and Max, I think he's talking about Max Holloway, have both raised your stock considerably since you beat him in a close fight. After what he just did to Cobb, beating him again, would it be a pretty big? It was a pretty big statement. Is that a fight that you think makes sense most for you, or do you have someone else in mind if you do go through Jeremy Stephens?
In my journey, I guess, to the championship belt, I want to just keep fighting someone who's ranked higher than me. That is my goal, So this is actually the first fight, I think. No, this isn't the first fight, but I said, yeah. Well, no. I don't know. Yeah, this is like the first fight in a while, at least, that I've fought someone who's ranked below me,
Yeah. Look, I
really like, being the underdog. And even though that I'm ranked above Jeremy Stephens, I'm still telling myself that people think he's going to win, just to get myself riled up and pumped up,
Sure. Well, look, we're going to wrap up the interview with what we call the Submission Radio Tap-Out round. I know you're dying to eat your sushi, so we're going to quickly bust through this, and then we'll let you go. You've done this before with us. Basically, we fire off a bunch of fun, random questions. We get to know you with this round, and then you answer with the first thing that comes to mind, like word association. You ready, Dennis?
Yes, sir.
All right. On June 10th, you tweeted, spicy tuna sushi isn't even spicy. # this must stop. Please explain this injustice to us.
If something like, for example, a killer whale can kill you. A killer bee can kill you. Spicy tuna should be spicy.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Hot wings are hot in temperature and spicy hot.
I'll tell you what, people need to get on top of this and start the movement because I've experienced it as well, Dennis. Now, give us your Zombie Beavers movie review. How many Oscar nominations can we expect from it?
Oof, probably 0. You know what? Because, here's what happened. I watch Netflix, and sometimes I see these movies, I'm like, how can this even be a movie? The idea is so far-fetched. I just need to see how they went about to make it even make any sense. Like what's that? Shark Tornado. Like, how can that even work? I had to watch it for that reason.
Yeah.
I didn't get it. I had to watch it to see.
And there's sequels as well of Sharknado. So
I think, yeah.
Sharknado too.
I think we're in the wrong business. We should all just start making movies and be filthy rich off of really crappy movies. Well, speaking of movies, Dennis, if you could be any color Power Ranger, which one would you be? And we're talking those original Power Rangers, not these new fancy crappy Power Rangers with the samurai swords and stuff.
Right. Probably the Black Ranger, because he resembled the most of a ninja.
Yeah.
Ninjas didn't wear bright colors. They wore black, so you couldn't see them. Even though he had some white on there, but, Sharpie, anything possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how the Yellow Ranger didn't get noticed more. She was like a big highlighter walking around everywhere.
Oh, and she was super hot, too.
Yeah, and the pink one as well.
What? Also, the Black Ranger, he turned into something cool, like a T-Rex or something like that, right?
I don't remember. I think the blue one was like a mastodon. I don't remember any of their animals, to be honest.
Or a saber-toothed panther. I don't know. He turned into something I was like, all right.
Yeah.
At least it's not like fucking I don't know, like a lizard.
Nah, you can't be fighting as a lizard. You need to be like a tiger or something.
But I'll tell you what really blew my mind was I think the Red Ranger might have become like a white or Green Ranger at one point, and that's what really blew my mind when I was a kid.
I think the white Ranger became the
white
green.
and Green Ranger could switch back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't know, something along those lines. I never really got it.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
And then the Green Ranger became an MMA fighter.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. In the
Yeah,
end,
and
it was about
he wants to
equality.
fight with CM Punk, so it all comes full circle. Now, next question, Dennis. This is a psychological one. If you're Dennis the Menace, who's your Mr. Wilson?
Who's my Mr. Wilson?
Hmm.
So meaning like the person I like terrorize and stuff like that, and like
Yeah.
Yeah.
bug and like mental stuff.
But in
And
your
he yells
life.
at you. He goes, Bermudez.
Actually, there's probably two of them. There's one in California, and there's one in here on Long Island. They try to be Ryan LaFleur here on Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
Because Ryan LaFleur is my life coach mentor.
Mm-hmm.
So anything he kind of says, I'm like, all right, dude, sounds good, good idea, yeah, you know. But I also like fuck shit up. He's like, dude, what the fuck? Like, why did you do that? I'm like, I'm sorry. And the same thing with Pat Cummings in California when I'm out there, you know.
Yep. No, we love Pat. They both need to change their names to Ryan Mr. Wilson LaFleur and Pat Mr. Wilson Cummings. Now, we know you're an avid gamer, Dennis. One of the last few questions. What's being played on the PS4 or the Xbox right now? What are you gaming with?
I've got the Xbox One right now. I was just over at the FaZe house, which is the FaZe clan, and they're super duper popular on YouTube for being trick shooters. They've got like over 1 million followers. So they're called the FaZe clan, and one of my sponsors like got them a house. They stay there, and I was over there actually playing with them today, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, against this guy who's like, I was surprised that I got half as many kills as him. I was like, dude, I'm kind of fucking, I'm feeling it right now, you know. But I was talking to him about game consoles, and he was saying how all the top guys now are going PS4 over Xbox One. I was like, dude, why did you tell me that like a few months ago before I bought my Xbox One? Because I got Xbox One because you guys play Xbox One, and I was getting my ass kicked. I can call you guys, and now I'm on the ass kicking side of things.
Well, it's true because Dennis
you guys are playing PS4?
Yeah, Dennis and myself, we have the PS4, so it's true what the FaZe clan says. The elite guys have the PS4s.
Yeah, meanwhile, I can get one kill on Destiny.
I'm looking into seeing if I can't somehow, along the lines, get hooked up with a PS4.
Yeah, switch over to the dark side, Dennis. Come on over. It's nice and warm here.
If anyone from Sony listens to this interview, don't provide Dennis Bermudez with a PS4 because then he might beat us. Now, here's a serious question for you, Dennis, before we finish up this interview. We've got a few famous Dennises here. We want you to pick which one is your favorite. The first one is Dennis Rodman. The second one is comedian, genius, Dennis Miller. And of course, the third one is the most famous detective from NYPD Blue, Detective Sipowicz himself, Dennis Franz. And that's the one that George was trying to mimic his hairstyle to in that episode of Seinfeld. Now, which one do you believe is your favorite, and which one do you think you have the biggest similarities to, and why?
Probably for both of them would be Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, we can see that.
One, so growing up, my older brother's like one of his favorite teams was the Chicago Bulls. You know, he's a big Sky Tippin and Michael Jordan fan, you know. So I wanted to be like my brother, but I didn't want to be a copycat my brother. I didn't want to be a front runner and like Michael Jordan because everybody else like Michael Jordan. So I was like, I'll like Dennis Rodman because we have the same first name. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one. And then in terms of who I'm the most like, I mean, me and Dennis Rodman share a similar skin tone.
True.
That's one. And then two, he's an oddball. Now, I don't think I'm an oddball to that extreme, but I have my little, I don't know, weird things, I guess. I don't know. People say I'm weird, you know, and especially when I liked him at the time. Like, I don't know, it might have been like 8th grade. I would comb my hair straight back after I got a shower. So when I woke up in the morning, it'd be standing straight up like a crazy afro. And I'd wear my pajamas to school. My dad'd be like, why don't you, like, wash your face and, like, brush your teeth and, like, look presentable? I'm like, because I don't care, dude. I don't care what anyone's saying. And I thought I was, like, cool in that aspect. I didn't care what people thought. And so, yeah. And I don't think Dennis Rodman really cares too much about what people think either.
It was kind of a gag question, but I think we found out that you actually have a lot more in common than with Dennis Rodman than we actually thought. Now, the final question before we let you off the hook, yeah, this is definitely the getting to know you round. The final question is, what's the prediction? How do you see yourself beating Jeremy Stevens at UFC 189? Doesn't have to be a long answer. What's the official prediction? Is it KO submission? What round? What are you thinking?
I see it being very similar to how I beat Clay Guida. Just constant pressure, getting super tired and then making him look stupid, and where he'll just slip up and just kind of he'll either be so tired that he doesn't want to fight anymore and he'll just give me the submission, or he might be so tired he just can't defend himself, and I will take it.
Well, there you go. How can you deny that? It's going to be an exciting night of fights. UFC 189 arguably could be one of the biggest UFC cards they've ever had. Guys, you can follow Dennis on Twitter at @Bermudez and watch him fight Jeremy Stephens on July 11th or the 12th here in Australia, UFC 189. Dennis, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate the interview.
Thanks for having me, guys.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben, and you're listening to Submission Radio. They're fucking rad.
All right, guys, our next guest is one of the pioneers of MMA. You'll know him from UFC, WWF, and Bellator. He just had a big fight over the weekend, and he's come on to Submission Radio to have a chat about it. Ken Shamrock, welcome back to Submission Radio.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Hey, it's great to have you on so quickly after your fight. This Bellator event, we mentioned you had a big fight, 2.4 million viewers. That's pretty big. The event was a huge success. You helped the UFC grow its fan base when you fought Tito, and now you've done it for Bellator. How do you feel when you saw those numbers?
Well, I feel good. Like I said, I did it in Japan with the Pancrase Organization. I was also a big part of the Attitude Era with WWF. They were having problems and helped build that. And then they had to be able to do it in the beginning of the UFC and now also in the later UFC. It's pretty cool, man. I'm glad to be able to be a part of that. And I tell you, the biggest thanks, and I guess we should be more thankful to the fans, because the fans are the ones that really make this happen.
Now, let's talk about the fight. You got into really fantastic shape for this fight. Your official weight was 204.4 pounds. The fight was scheduled to be a heavyweight fight. Did you realize that you'd be coming in so light, or was it a surprise to you as well?
Well, I tried to put weight on. I struggled with it, but it was what I weighed. My intensity in my training was definitely very high. And I tried to put weight on. I was packing in food for 5 to 6 meals a day, and I just couldn't seem to get up over 212 pounds. I thought I would weigh about 212, 215 coming into the fight, but on that last week of the fight, I lost 5 pounds for whatever reason, traveling or whatever. But I stepped on at 204. I was really surprised. I thought I'd be somewhere between 210 or 212. But it didn't bother me at all, because I knew the shape that I was in. I was in the best shape that I've been in 10 to 15 years. And I knew that this was my fight going into it, and I felt real comfortable.
I'm just curious, you say you were putting on weight. How much did you weigh before you started? Before you started putting on the weight, how much did you weigh?
Yeah, I was about 215.
Okay.
Now, let's talk about the fight. I mean, it was a very close back-and-forth fight on the ground, obviously finished in the way that Kimbo won the fight. A lot of people are wondering, on the ground, it looked like he had a choke. He had a choke on Kimbo. Obviously, you're a master submission artist. What went wrong? Why couldn't you finish Kimbo on the ground?
Well, it's frustrating to me, too, because even when I look back on it, I just can't believe I couldn't finish it. And it really was just basically the excitement. It felt like I was dominating him. I controlled his wrists in the clinch. I controlled his body in the clinch. I controlled the takedown. I was able to take him out pretty easily twice. And then he gave up his back, and I put my hooks in, and it just felt everything was easy, and I felt stronger. And instead of just working and using technique, when I threw the choke on, immediately when I threw the choke on, I tried to use power and strength just to choke him out. It was just overexcitement. I got positioned where I wanted, and I was going to finish it quickly. And I made a lot of mistakes. Trying to squeeze it on there, and then not being able to, when I was squeezing it, not being able to balance myself on his back to make sure that I stayed up in case he wanted to come up. And it was just stupid mistakes. There's nothing I can do about it. I look back on it, it was idiotic and dumb, but I'm human. And I went in and I did the best I could. I made a mistake, and I paid for it.
When we spoke to you a few months ago before the fight, Ken, you said to us in the past that Kimbo has never been a good striker. During the fight, you didn't throw any punches. What was the game plan going into that fight? Was it to take Kimbo down straight away?
Yeah, all the things I'm saying and doing going into the fight was basically get Kimbo not to know what it is I was going to do. I didn't want to have a thought process of what I was going to work on and what I was going to be doing. And so I stayed away from any other stuff that would implicate that I was going to take him down, even though everybody said that was the best thing for me to do, and I need to do it, but I wanted to make sure when I shot in that I had all the advantages, and I did that. I basically kept it quiet, and, you know, my shots were really good. The technique on them were really good, and I got where I wanted to. Bottom line is this, though. When I got where I wanted to, I couldn't finish it. I made a mistake.
There was a moment in the fight where you and Kimbo were in a wrestling clinch. The two of you had your ears and mouths close to each other. Many people speculated there was some talking going on. I think Kimbo said he was doing a bit of trash talking. What exactly was said between you two during that moment?
That's correct. There was talking. When I had his wrist, and it was after I took him down the first time, we got back up, and I had him front face lock, and I had his wrist control. He told me to let him go. Let me go. Let's bang. Let's bang. And then I kneed him in the face. On a side when I had it. And then he goes, is that all you got? And I said, no, baby, I got something else for you. And that's when I took him down and got his back and tried to choke him out.
Wow. I think the whole world watching was you know, so surprised, Kimbo, because he's just never been known for any grappling, really. Were you surprised, you know, that he managed to escape that rear naked choke when he lost position?
Listen, Kimbo didn't escape it. What happened was I went through the choke, and I tried to slip the choke in tighter. And when I did that, I turned my body sideways on his back, and I slipped off. It wasn't what he did. It was what I did. It was my mistake. Nothing that he did, but he didn't do anything other than let me fall off his back.
Mm-mm.
It's interesting because I think you might have mentioned that you felt like Kimbo might have tapped at one point, and he was doing an interview post-fight where he said he actually went out a little bit during the part where you had the choke on. I mean, did that play into any of the point of you slipping off his back? Did you think he had him and he tapped, and then you lightened up a little bit on the choke? Is that what happened?
Listen, I'm not getting that. You know, my job was to finish the fight. My job was to fight, and so that's that. I'm not going to get into what she said.
All right, well, yeah, sure. I mean, the fight's in the books. It's all happened. You know, we have to ask you, Ken. It was a monumental event for Bellator. There are a lot of people who have accused the fight of being fixed. There are people that have said the fight looked fake, including UFC commentator Joe Rogan. You know, I'm just very curious. I don't want to be disrespectful in any way, but what do you say to those people?
Why in the world would someone in Joe Rogan's position spout off something like that when there's no proof? When it's a speculation of his thoughts, of what he thought, that could literally ruin somebody's career. That's like me going out there and telling his wife that he cheated on his wife, yet I don't have any proof, but someone just said something. Those are things when you say it, it's being in a professional position where you have the people's ear and you have a responsibility to make sure that whatever you say, you can back up, that you can prove, and not just say it because you think it, because you'll ruin people's lives on something that you have no proof. And he's wrong what he's saying. He's wrong what he's saying, and therefore he could have ruined my career and my life on what he's saying where there's no proof to it.
And I mean, now that you're on a program listened to by a huge MMA community, it's a great pathway for you to tell them definitely 100% the fight was not fixed. Is that right, Ken?
I swear on everything that I love, my family, my God, everything that I love, that fight was not fixed. And the people that are saying it because they're angry or they lost a bet because they bet in Vegas or they're just trying to be hurtful. That's it.
Well, there you go. You've heard it from the man himself. Now, you've got your film coming out, The Greatest Fight, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. But, you know, after a fight like this, we've got to ask, what's next for Ken Shamrock in terms of fighting? Will you fight again?
Absolutely. What I did in that fight, if you look at the body of work that I did, it was completely domination over a guy that was supposed to be stronger than me, a guy that was supposed to be bigger, stronger. And obviously, you look at what happened when I signed to do the fight. A lot of these same people that are saying the fight was fixed, almost all of them said I should have never been in the ring. I'm 51, I'm too old, I can't compete at that age. And now they're saying I can't lose. Now they're saying there's no way I could have lost. So I'm really confused on these guys and the way they think, because one minute I can't fight and I shouldn't be in the ring, and the next minute I can't lose. So make up your mind. You know, I put a lot of work in training to get myself in shape. I was out of the ring for almost, 5 to 7 years. I can't even remember, but a long time I've been out of the ring. And for me to come back and do what I did after being gone that long, I would knock off some ring rust. I would get myself back in the ring and go, I am going to be better next time I get in the ring because it's going to be 7 years before I get back in the ring again. So I'm going to be better the next time I go out. So why would I stop now when I've already put in a great body of work and I can get better?
Well, let me ask you about that, because I don't know if it's been asked of you before, but how did you actually feel? Obviously, training is one thing, then going to the fight, you're saying you were knocking off some of that cage rust. How did you actually feel physically? Did you say you lead up to the fight, you were saying you were in the best shape of your life. Did you really feel that way? Did you feel like a fresher Ken Shamrock as opposed to the Ken Shamrock that fought in 2010?
Yeah, and I felt really good. The only thing that going in there was because I hadn't, really I hadn't shot on anybody in 10 years or however long it was, and I would really be able to shoot, hit people down. So there was a lot of that timing, the timing, the comfortableness of going in there and doing this because it's so long. But as soon as the bell rang and as soon as we started getting going, it was like riding a bike, man. Man, literally I was stronger. I felt like I controlled the position I was into. And it just felt like, man, I was back. And then even when Jon stopped it, and I was walking up going, why? What for what reason? But whatever. It happened. Boom. I stood up, and I wasn't even ended. I mean, and it was a boom bang fight, where we went after. And I wasn't winded. I was ready to rock and roll some more. So my conditioning, my strength, my mental strength, all of that was right there. And I can't wait to get back in the ring, to get after it again, because I believe I could put on bigger and better fights now.
Well, speaking of bigger and better fights, Royce Gracie was interviewed before your fight with Kimbo and mentioned that he'd be interested in a third fight with you, depending on how you go in your fight in Bellator. I mean, you guys have had quite a rivalry. You've had 2 fights previously. Would he be a name that you'd consider coming back and fighting in Bellator?
Listen, I would be all over. Yeah, I'll tell you, Royce Gracie's the one I want to fight. It's been a long time coming. That second fight that we had, he's always the one saying, well, it was a draw, And I think anybody watching knows it's not. But in my opinion, man, let's do this third one. A whole tour that I'm on right now when I came back was to get fights that were unfinished. And Kimbo, when it jumped up, I got that. Royce has got to be the next one, man. I want that one so bad. But I don't want people to think this either, because if I ever get the opportunity to fight Kimbo again, then I'm going to jump at that. Because in my opinion, man, he got lucky. But whatever. He did what he wanted to fight. I give him props to it. What's it? I'm back.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you had a couple of fights previously with Royce. If you guys did get this third fight, how would you think it'd play out differently? How would you think this third one would be different from your last 2 fights with him?
Oh, man, so much more knowledgeable. When I fought Royce, I was 2.5 years in, and he had all the experience behind him, and then the training, the education of training, we weren't all there. We were developing these. I developed the sit in the pocket and ground and pound, follow the hips, ground and pound. I developed that in order to fight Royce. So there's so much more of the development that I've had since that time, where I was just learning on the fly. While I was in the ring, I was learning on how to fight, these guys. So now, with all the education that I have and the understanding that I have, there's no way Royce Gracie would be able to go with me like he did then. There's no way. And in my opinion, I'm going to stop him.
Now, Tito Ortiz spoke to the media and said that he knocked back a fight with your brother Frank Shamrock to pursue the title shot. Here's a wild one. Seeing as you and Frank have buried the hatchet and it's a fight the fans have been always wanting and asking for many years, is it a possibility? Could we ever see, maybe now, you and Frank possibly headlining a Bellator card together, you versus Frank Shamrock?
No, like I said, I don't exclude anything. I would never just straight out challenge my brother, but if it was a fight that he wanted or a fight that made sense, then I'd do it, absolutely.
Yeah, certainly. And obviously, no bad blood there. You guys are brothers, but a fan-friendly contest that people would love to see. Now, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about your bare-knuckle boxing. Obviously, last time you were on the program, you spoke to us about putting on a bare-knuckle boxing event on pay-per-view. You were going to be featured on it. There's going to be a bunch of fights on it. What's going on with that? What's the update? Are you still planning on doing this?
Yeah, we're in the process right now. We can't really talk much on lot of stuff we're working through right now. But yeah, that's definitely going to happen, and we're just waiting to put all the cross the T's and dot the I's right now. So right now it's looking really good. It's something I'm very interested in, no doubt.
Well, it's a perfect timing, Ken, because you're in the spotlight, and obviously your movie just got released, The Greatest Fight. This film has been in the making for 6 years. I'm just curious, what has that been like, and how did you decide to start and undertake a project like this?
Well, it was actually approached by Darren Wilson, who was the producer, and he had found out, that I had some background and I was really struggling in issues, but I could turn my life back over to Jesus, and I was walking, and he wanted to kind of capture a person who was going through the ups and downs in this world of fighting, and it started out that way, and then it just morphed into this bigger picture now, and man, what a journey! But at the same time, it was one of the hardest things I had to do, because I had to almost go back and rethink things that had happened. I had to revisit some very, very trauma situations I was involved with. So it was definitely a hard thing, but at the same time, it really helped me forgive and release a lot of that anger and hurt that I had inside of me.
Yeah, certainly. Now, projects often get lost or stopped after a while. I mean, this one took a while, a long, long time to complete. Was there any point during the completion process or while you guys were shooting it that you thought the movie may never be completed or released?
Yeah, I think it was just, I don't know, a few years back after we had shot some stuff, and I had just got done fighting somewhere in the States, somewhere here. And Darren just felt so like depressed, almost like, man, I don't want to see you fight again. Like, I was really in the dumps, and I felt bad, and almost like everything just kind of stopped. And I didn't think the film was going to come out up until recently, when we started doing stuff with Bellator, and then we came up, and he came and talked to me and revisited me and saw the revibrant of Ken Shamrock, and because I had gone through some things, and I really had turned my life over to God and really started following him, and my life changed. Everything changed. And Darren saw that right away, and he says, man, let's reshoot the ending of this thing. And so as we started doing that, they started being uplifted and excited about it. It's completely different from what they were, a few years back, where it was just dead and flat. Like, it was depressing. And now he saw a different Ken Shamrock and the emergence of me and all the things that were going on. And so we were able to put the ending together, and it was tremendous, man. I mean, it was really an awesome thing to be able to do with those guys and revisit it and really put an ending to this thing. And it's thegreatestfight.com, man. If you want to check it out, man, go to thegreatestfight.com, check it out, man. I'm telling you, it's a great film, and it's definitely something that a lot of people could either, one, use themselves or pass on to their children or family members.
Well, there you go, guys. Yeah, definitely check out the website. Ken, before we let you go, we're just going to do what we always do with you, which is the Submission Radio Tap Bat Round. We do it with all our guests. Just a bunch of fun, random questions, and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind, just like word association. So, first question right off the bat. As a fellow former WWE wrestler, what were your thoughts on Bobby Lashley's performance?
Oh, amazing.
Who's someone from Bellator who you see as a big star in the future?
Oh, Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, for sure. Tell us about having Road Warrior Animal walk you out of Bellator 138. Why him in particular?
He's fantastic. He's a big, popular, tremendous personality in St. Louis.
Seeing as you're in great shape, would you ever consider coming back for one more pro wrestling match?
Absolutely. I would definitely come back.
Describe your relationship with Scott Coker in one sentence.
Straight up friendly.
What was your favorite thing to watch on your iPad in your motorhome between training sessions?
Oh, wow. Oh, man. It's the whole thing. Watching anything. My favorite thing to do was to listen to scripture.
You listen to what, sorry?
Scripture.
Scripture. Okay, gotcha. Give us your favorite memory from being on an episode of the hilarious That 70s Show.
Oh, the greatest memory is I give, and I give.
Now, Ken, is there any truth to the rumor that you'll be back in the movie Blood of the Patriot, which is the sequel to the movie Bunker that you were in?
Oh, yes.
Let me ask you, now that the fight's over and done with, do you feel the beef between you and Kimbo is now squashed?
Finally, Ken, I mean, there's so many exciting things happening in your career. Just name a couple of things. What can fans be excited about and expect from Ken Shamrock in the rest of 2015?
They're going to see something better than they saw in the first two fight. They're going to see a much more education, much more relaxed, seasoned fighter going into the ring next time.
Well, there you go, guys. More fights from Ken Shamrock. You guys can follow Ken on Twitter at ShamrockKen. Of course, watch his documentary online at thegreatestfight.com. It's highly recommended. Again, thank you so much for chatting to us, Ken. We really appreciate the time.
Appreciate you guys having me, and God bless.
This is Tito Ortiz, the People's Champ, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, we've got a very special guest coming on the show for a quick chat. He's a part of the Submission Radio family. You may recognize him from our MMA Technique of the Week videos. He's having his first pro MMA fight on July 18th at Hex Fight Series 3 in, of course, Melbourne, Australia. Shawn Davies, welcome to the program. How are you, man?
Good, mate. Good.
So, Shawn, a lot of people have watched your technique videos on our channel, but not many know about your fighting career. Tell the listeners around the world, what made you want to go pro this July in your first pro MMA fight?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I've been training for about 5 years, and it gets a little bit frustrating just, drilling technique and sparring. And I thought before I get too old to do this, I better give it a good crack and not procrastinate any longer. And yeah, I think this is the best time in my life to do it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And not only is this your first fight, but your original opponent, Peter Davenport, pulled out with a foot injury just a few days ago. You have been matched up with a new opponent already in Sam Hayward. Does this have any effect on your preparation for the fight, or is it just business as usual in the gym for Shawn Davies?
Well, yeah, no, it doesn't really, because my approach was to always, especially for my first fight at this level, I just figured to focus on improve my skills generally. So no matter what a fighter throws at me, I can adapt and respond accordingly using like the new skills and the skills that I've developed. So no, it doesn't really affect me or throw things off too much.
All right, well, Shawn, there's a lot of listeners around the world right now listening to this interview that don't truly know the man behind Shawn Davies. So just like we like to do with a lot of other guests, we've created a little tablet round for you so people know what makes Shawn tick. Are you ready, my friend?
Yep.
All right, well, we've been informed that even though you don't have an official nickname, people at your gym, Malvern MMA, have named you Shawn Cockroach Davies. Any truth to the rumors, mate?
Unfortunately, yes. It is indicative of the amount of time that I actually spend in the gym, and yeah, I have been. Someone has told me that.
Possibly because you're one of the shorter guys in the gym, Shawn.
Quite possibly, but I got the power of the low center of gravity going for me.
Yeah, if you think Shawn's a small guy, you're going to be surprised when you see him fight at Hex 3. Just to sort of elaborate on that, when you say the amount of time you spend at the gym, you mean you spend a lot of time at the gym, or you spend a little time at the gym? Or are you hiding under gym mats, Shawn?
Yeah, no. I spend a lot of time in the gym. You can't be killed like a cockroach. You've just wherever you turn, you see me.
Yeah, he's always
so
there.
I spend a lot of time, yeah.
He's hard to put away. These very same spies who've given us this information have told us also that you were once at a packed bar and started jumping up and down in one spot to Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana while everyone around you was carrying on in conversation. True or false, Shawn?
That is true. That is true.
Wow, the truth comes
yeah, well,
out.
it reminds me of being a teenager again, and when you feel it, mate.
I feel like it's your song from Seinfeld, like Desperado, where that guy just would go in his own zone. Smells Like Teen Spirit comes out. Doesn't matter what's happening. There could be a house burning. Shawn's jumping up and down. He's zoning out.
I love it, mate. I love it.
Now, on to the next question, Shawn. You have is this true? You have an unhealthy obsession with Demetrius Johnson, bringing him up over and over in training as one of your ultimate favorites. True or false?
That is true. That is true. I think if a bigger fighter can fight anywhere near the skills and the movement that smaller fighters possess, they're unbeatable. So I feel all the best heavier weight fighters truly just try to mimic smaller fighters and do what they can do, because they do it so, with such fluidity and effortlessness. So yeah, I really like Demetrius Johnson actually.
Yeah, I think unlike a lot of people who may sort of be like bandwagon jumpers, Sean always backs up his reasons for why he's such a Demetrius Johnson fan. But it's true, I can vouch for that. You do bring it up in conversation. I think one time we're having a conversation, and I said, "I'm hungry. What do you want to eat?" And Sean said, "Demetrius Johnson is my favorite fighter." On to the next question. Being a man in great shape, Sean, the word on the street is that in a social situation, you've been known to be the first person to rip off his top at the earliest opportunity. True or false?
That might be true as well, yeah. Depends if I've shaved my chest or not. If I've shaved my chest, it's definitely coming off.
I think at one time my ice cream fell on the ground, and before it hit the ground, Sean ripped off his shirt and tried to save it. I was like, just so unnecessary, Sean, but I appreciate it.
I just think we need to get the Guinness Book of World Records down to the gym one time just to get some records set for Sean, and that would be one of them. Now, you spoke about chest hair and shaving it off. Now, we've never seen Sean. We've known you for years, Sean, but we've never seen you with a mustache or a beard. I mean, Johnny Hendricks would be disappointed. When can we expect a face warmer on you in the future?
Unfortunately, I am follically challenged. Just like the baldness on the head, the facial hair doesn't quite come through. So I can't really rock the beard, mate. Unfortunately, I would love to. I'd love to. It make me look heaps meaner. It might, protect my face a little bit if I had a decent beard. But no, unfortunately not.
Oh, yeah, that sucks. I think you look really good with like a handlebar mustache, but at least the good news is your boyish good looks and the charm will carry on many years into the future, and you're going to look a lot younger than a lot of people. But guys, you can watch Shawn Davies in action at Hex Fight Series 3. Myself and Dennis will actually be there tweeting live and hanging out with the Oz MMA fans. So if you do make it down to see us, come say hi to Shawn as well. You can book your tickets now at www.hexfightseries.com and like Shawn's Facebook page at www.facebook.com/Shawn Davies MMA and follow him on Twitter at Shawn Davies MMA. And of course, if you're on our YouTube channel, he is there doing techniques of the week. He's not shirtless, but he's there doing techniques as well. So, Shawn, man, thank you so much for coming on the show, and good luck in the fight. We'll definitely see you there.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thank you.
And there you guys go. Shawn Davies, part of the Submission Radio family. Best of luck at Hex Fight Series 3. And like we mentioned, we will be there, guys. So if you're planning on going over to Hex Fight Series 3, make sure to look out for us. We'll be live tweeting the event and really excited to meet some of the local Aussie MMA fans. It's always a pleasure to chat to you guys, have a bit of a chit-chat about what's going on in the local scene and get your opinions on what's happening in the world of MMA. But, Cass, speaking about the world of MMA, there's been some crazy knockouts over the weekend from a bunch of different promotions, Bellator and UFC in particular. I mean, could this be the weekend of the knockouts, Cass?
It may very well be. I mean, somewhere in America, they had some kind of thing called Chicken Wing Day, National Chicken Wing Day. I'm not really sure what that's all about, but I was reading about it when I was reading about the UFC or MMA getting knocked out of New York, something about Chicken Wing Day. This could be like knockout weekend, if they want to call it. What's the date today? It's the 28th of June. This could be like a knockout weekend, if you will. Some pretty big things happening in the world of MMA. Another back-to-back Bellator/UFC weekend. Some pretty interesting things happening at Bellator. No doubt one of the biggest ones was the possible knockout of the year. Joe Schilling got absolutely blasted, destroyed in a fight that many people thought he was going to win against none other than Hisaki Kato. Relatively unknown guy.
Huge, and also big in the way of plans because a lot of people believed Schilling was going to be a big part of this Glory Bellator hybrid card. Now people aren't so much sure. I think the man who knocked him out has a good chance of being on that card now.
Then this is only Kato's 6th fight in his MMA career, so it just goes to show you can be an amazing kickboxer, but that does not necessarily transition to MMA.
It was a brutal knockout as well, wasn't it, Cass? Like, it was one of those knockouts where you rewatch it a number of times because it's brutal. The way he hits the ground, the way it happened out of sort of nowhere, the punch that he threw was it was a very cool knockout.
Well, it was a left-handed Superman punch, and I think it kind of reminds me of like Krokop and Gonzaga. I don't know anything. I don't know if anything's going to top Krokop Gonzaga 1, but just in the sense that you thought Joe Schilling was going to win, and it was so brutal. You didn't have that monumentalness of, you know, Krokop, Gonzaga head kicking, the head kick master, but just in the sense that Joe Schilling was such a, you know, he's the hot new kickboxer these days, and him getting not only knocked out, but that brutally, and like you said, the way he just dropped like a sack of potatoes and hit the mat, just, yeah, absolutely brutal. Other big things happening in Bellator as well. Josh Koscheck is going over across the pond to Bellator as well. Looks like they're probably going to be making that rematch with Paul Daly. That's something interesting. And, of course, Chet Congo doing pretty well there as well, beating the Russian Volkov in the main event. So it's a pretty exciting weekend. And then, of course, you've got the UFC, which we're about to break down as well.
Yeah, that's right. So another great weekend for fans. And, you know, even though this card for Bellator didn't have the huge names that it did last weekend, a lot of good feedback from fans, people enjoying the card, and another great card put on by Bellator. So all things going well for Bellator so far.
Yeah, you know, this card by the UFC Fight Night, I believe we're in 70 now, or UFC Hollywood as they're calling it. Not Hollywood, California, Hollywood, Florida, at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino.
So confusing. I was like, I didn't look at where it was at first, and I was like, how can it be in Florida and Hollywood at the same time? I was like, I have no idea about anything to do with America, I must have, because I thought Hollywood was in California, so nice and confusing for a lot of the international viewers.
And then you see Hard Rock, and you're like, what? They're in Vegas at the same time?
Yeah.
What's going on? Well, this one was supposed to be in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and then on May 15th, it got moved. Basically, a bunch of guys didn't get their visas, and they were like, well, we're not going to let this card fall apart, but like the finals for the Ultimate Fighter for Brazil were supposed to be on this card as well, so it was a massive switcheroo. You had Rick Story and Eric Silva, they were meant to be the main event, so honestly, the card for what happened, it actually came together pretty well. There was some fun fights, Hakran Diaz versus Levan Makashvili. Just probably the only like really boring, painful to fight to watch on the card. But everything else is pretty fun. Now, I want to kick it off with, again, another crazy knockout. Thiago Santos versus Steve Barcet. This guy, basically, Steve Barcet, former hockey player. He was retired. He hasn't fought in over 2 years. His last fight was in May of 2013. And if you'll remember, he almost fought at UFC 186 against Fabio Maldonado when Rampage was looking to be in jeopardy. And it's probably a good thing that he didn't fight against Fabio Maldonado. Actually, I guess either way, those are both tough fights to come back from, or to basically have when you're coming back from over a 2-year layoff. And not only that, it's one thing to be gone with like injuries, but know that you're going to continue fighting. It's another thing to sort of retire and say, look, I'm done with it, and then decide to come back. So, you know, I feel like a lot of people, especially the Canadian fans, especially the people in Montreal, Quebec, have really been aching to see Steve Barcet finally make his UFC debut. And man, it was underwhelming for Steve, at least. Thiago Santos cracked him with a massive head kick. I believe it was the left leg. Knocked him out straight away. Just absolutely starched him. Steve, unfortunately, he didn't look horrible when the fight started. Like, he was moving around nicely. I thought this was going to be a fun, exciting fight, and it was exciting. It was just over really quickly. He had his hands really low, and when he sort of entered into boxing range, or he was trying to enter into boxing range, Thiago caught him coming in and just completely shut the lights off. If you missed this card, I know some people are kind of like, oh, you know, there wasn't really that stacked other than Yoel Romero Machida. That's the main fight I wanted to watch. If you haven't, definitely go check out the replays. I'm sure they're probably everywhere. Go down to my good friends Bloody Elbow and check them out. But yeah, insane knockout.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, shin to the dome, always tough to watch, but it was an absolutely crazy knockout. And I mean, guys, in the comment section underneath the episode, YouTube, or even if you want to jump on Twitter, let us know which knockout you thought was crazier, the Bellator one or this one, because both of them were pretty nuts. Cass, do you have a front runner? Do you have a favorite out of the two?
I don't know. I didn't actually think about it, so I'm a bit on the spot right now. I'd probably say Joe Schilling getting knocked out, because even though the Steve Barcet knockout was really pretty, and it's always fun seeing, you know, the shin to the dome action, I think just with Joe Schilling, it was more monumental because you just didn't expect it, and I think it was a little bit more out of nowhere. You know, like with with Steve Bussey, like, okay, he's an MMA fighter and he's had some success, but you kind of always think of him as a guy who was a hockey player who transitioned to MMA, whereas Thiago Santos was sort of always an MMA fighter. So, you know, you could sort of, you wouldn't necessarily put Steve Bussey as the favorite. I thought it was just going to be a crazy brawl. But then with Joe Schilling fighting a guy that I honestly didn't know much about at all to get brutally destroyed, I mean, I think that's even more fun. When an underdog does something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you as well, by the way. I think it was a great moment, but both knockouts, fantastic in their own right, and absolutely agree with you, Cass. People need to jump on and check it out if they didn't get a chance to watch the cards. Now, another fight that happened was between Antonio Carlos Jr. and Eddie Gordon. Eddie Gordon, obviously the Ultimate Fighter winner. However, he's fallen in some hard times, losing 2 fights in a row going into this one. A lot of people are a bit nervous to see if he was going to be able to deliver a performance to show people why he is the Ultimate Fighter. Obviously, guys that watch the fight card would have seen that he wasn't able to do it. Cass, your breakdown of the fight, where did Eddie go wrong?
He didn't really get much offense in. I think he was a little bit frozen. So the fight starts, and first thing I think is Antonio Carlos Jr. looks exactly like Nicky Rubenstein from Entourage. The whole time, I'm like a massive version. I don't know if anybody remembers Giant Gonzalez from the WWF days. He versed Undertaker. I think that was Undertaker's first WrestleMania. No, second. And Giant Gonzalez was dude who's like 7'4", and if you picture Antonio Carlos Jr. but 7'4", that's pretty much what he looked like. So I'm looking at this guy who just looks massive for the division. I actually thought for some reason I got confused. I thought it was a light heavyweight fight, and I'm like, damn, dude, this guy almost looks like a heavyweight. And then I realized, oh shit, it's a middleweight fight. So that's going to give you trouble. And the thing is, Antonio Carlos Jr., he started off at heavyweight, then went down to light heavyweight, and now at middleweight. So I'm just wondering, like, how does he cut the weight to... I don't know how he cuts weight to make 185, but he's massive for the division. Eddie Gordon, unfortunately, the only offense he really got in was a few jabs. There were moments where he established his range. He got the jab. He was very hesitant. And the only other thing that he really did was put Antonio Carlos Jr. against the cage and just basically held him there. He wasn't able to take him down. He wasn't really able to do much at all. It was all Antonio Carlos Jr. He had the reach advantage. He stayed on the outside, and he basically took down Eddie Gordon whenever he wanted. And one thing that I'm impressed about Antonio Carlos Jr. is the fact that when you have a guy that's that big and he cuts so much weight, you kind of wonder, well, how's he going to fare in the later rounds? And he actually managed to finish Eddie Gordon in the third, very late in the third. I believe there's only about 20 seconds left in the fight. So he had gas pretty much right until the very end. One thing, though, about Eddie Gordon, he didn't really put much pressure on Antonio Carlos Jr., so I'm very curious to see how Antonio does against a guy who puts on a lot of pressure, and I wonder how that cardio will hold up in that sense. But honestly, a horrible night for Eddie Gordon. You know, people were talking about how he was very successful in making weight. Normally, it's absolutely hell for him during fight week. This time, he completely changed up his diet. We saw a lot of the media covering that. Quite a few interviews going around. He looked really happy during fight week. So this is meant to be the new improved Eddie Gordon, and now it's a third one in a row in terms of losses. Some people are saying he may be the... I hate to use this word, but some people say maybe the worst Ultimate Fighter winner in history. He's basically lost all his fights since winning the competition. And, then you've got the Josh Saman head kick KO in his last fight. So that's 2 stoppages and 3 losses altogether. So it's not looking good for Eddie Gordon, and he may very well, his time with the company may be finished.
Yeah, it's a great point, mate. And I mean, Eddie Gordon now has to go back to the drawing board and see what's going on, because obviously in the Ultimate Fighter house, we saw some great performances from him, but is it physical? Is it mental? Has he lost some of his self-confidence? Is it the pressure of being the Ultimate Fighter, a crown that some fighters don't wear too well? I mean, Mac Danzig really struggled with it. A lot of guys did. Joe Daddy Stevenson. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from Eddie next. I guess his next moves will tell us whether it will, first of all, the UFC choose to keep him on, and then if they do, what kind of performance we'll see from him. This will pretty much be his last opportunity to really show people what he's made of.
Yeah, I feel it reminds me of Austin Powers, where he lost his mojo. Eddie Gordon's got to go out there and he's got to find his mojo. He's got to get it back, and he's got to start beating guys again if he wants to stay in the UFC. So, it sucks for him because he's a really great personality. I remember when he won the competition, like, we'd be scrolling through Twitter and like every second tweet was Eddie Gordon, Eddie Truck Gordon. So, he's really good to the fans, and he did a lot of work on sort of trying to get his name out there and making his presence felt. Hopefully he can back that up in the cage in his next fight, or like you said, Dennis, it might be his last chance. onto the co-main event. We're absolutely running through it this week. Lorenz Larkin versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. Man, this is definitely fight of the night right here. What did you think of this fight, Dennis?
Yeah, it was just such a great fight. I mean, Lorenz Larkin, everybody knows this guy's super tough, one of the most talented guys in the division, but not that many people knew about Santiago, and he is one tough SOB. I mean, the guy was able to take punches and leg kicks. I was so impressed, and he really pushed the action. He landed a lot of great combinations on Lorenz. There was a lot of great punches. He backed him up. It was a really back-and-forth fight for a lot of it. I mean, I was really impressed with Lorenz for utilizing some of his strategy. Those leg kicks that he landed on Santiago, when you saw the back of his leg, man, that looked brutal. He had that black and blue bruising throughout the back of his leg almost instantaneously. Those kicks looked like they really hurt. And Santiago, he is a very, very tough guy. I mean, Lorenz landed some really good combinations on him, and he just kept moving forward, kept pushing the action. I mean, this is the kind of guy that Dana White dreams of. I'm sure he loves having fighters like that. Very impressed with his performance. Unfortunately for him, Lorenz was able to land, obviously, that really impressive combination where he first landed the first shot that stunned him and then followed up with the other shots. And then, I mean, Santiago, the heart he showed getting up, trying to fight out of it. But, yeah, a great stoppage, I thought. It was a great fight and a good win for Lorenz. But, yeah, definitely a battle. And if Lorenz thought it was going to be an easy fight, it definitely wasn't. I was impressed with both guys. What did you think of the fight, Cass?
Yeah, look, I'm in the same boat where I didn't know as much about Santiago as I did Lorenz, and I've been a Lorenz Larkin fan for quite a while. You know, I'm really glad that he went down to welterweight. There was a point because he had really good, exciting middleweight fights, but I think he was always oversized, and his wrestling is certainly not the greatest, but when he's standing, he's a really exciting fighter. And he lost 3 in a row to Brad Tavares, Costa Philippou, and then Derek Brunson. I was worried that, man, this might be the end of Lorenz Larkin, or at least in the UFC, and they kept him on. They put him up against John Howard, and that was his welterweight debut. Man, destroyed John Howard, and now had an awesome fight against Santiago. Honestly, I'm not gonna say yet that Lorenz Larkin could become the champion or anything like that, but I'm really high up on this guy. Just so good at avoiding the punches and all the punishment of Santiago. He was just so good at getting out of range, getting in there, getting his own shots in there, a lot of straight punches, the fantastic leg kicks. I was very impressed with Santiago because, like you said, he just kept coming forward and forward. But, man, the Monsoon with his flurries, and then in the end, getting that brutal stoppage. The speed difference as well. He was so fast, Lorenz Larkin. He's so good with that. And then... some people say that Herb Dean was a little bit slow to stop the fight. Yeah, I tend to agree, but I don't think it was an absolutely, horrible job that Herb Dean did. I think, sometimes with Herb Dean, you see him give people, really that extra time to really recover. In this fight, I think it was fine, and honestly, what made for, in the end, a really awesome stoppage for Lorenz Larkin. But
yeah,
I don't know. I'm a big fan of the stoppages when the guy's on the feet because it just looks crazy and dramatic. It's like he's out on his feet. His eyes were just rolled back. He was on autopilot. There was a lot of moments where I was amazed that Santiago wasn't on the ground. There's a lot of moments where I was like, oh shit, he's out. And then the next thing you know, he's climbing up the cage. I was like, wow, I thought he was gone. And then, they're standing, and then Lorenz Larkin is throwing more punches. So I think it adds to the drama when a guy is stopped on his feet.
Oh, absolutely. And I think also, even though Santiago lost the fight, he made a lot of new fans. I think a lot of people were just impressed with the fight in general. And the thing with Lorenz is he just has so much confidence in his chin. I mean, he just has a lot of confidence in his abilities, but also his chin as well. You can see the guy has a great chin on him. And Santiago landed some good shots on him, but you just didn't see Lorenz crumble. He had a lot of self-belief, and it really showed in this fight. But it was a great fight. One fight of the night, and as well it should have. It was a great matchup.
Lorenz reminds me of in a way when he's frowning. He looks like a really small Alistair Overeem. With the hair and the way he does it. I don't know, I get a strong Alistair Overeem vibe. Not in terms of fight style, personality or anything, but there was a few times where he's taking punches and frowning, and I'm like, damn, he looks like a mini Overeem. But let's talk about the main event, Yoel Romero versus Lyoto Machida. Man, Machida has fallen on some hard times. before we talk about the fight itself, what did you think was going to happen going into this fight, Dennis? Who did you think was going to win?
Well, I'll tell you what. I thought Lyoto Machida was going to beat Romero. Now, Yoel was on that show via translator, and we got a bit of a sense for him and the confidence that he had going into this one. But I just wasn't as sold on him as a contender in the middleweight division just yet. I thought he was going to be a big challenge for Lyoto, but I thought Lyoto was going to beat him and get back in that talk. Obviously, there was a lot of controversy surrounding the Luke Rockhold fight that came from Machida saying a couple of the shots that he threw were illegal. Obviously, it didn't look like he once did, and it could have just been an off night, in my opinion. So I thought he was going to come back and show us the Lyoto Machida of old. Obviously, that didn't happen. But before we talk about the fight, what did you think, Cass? Did you have Romero going over Machida, or did you think this was going to be his comeback?
When we had him on the show via translator, I was actually pretty amazed at his confidence, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but he was extremely, extremely confident. And that's one thing that you know, like how Conor McGregor is so confident that he convinces you, and I was a little bit like, oh wow, like this guy's really confident to like stand. Like he said that he was confident to stand and bang with him, and he wasn't worried about just going for wrestling. And the crazy thing about this fight is that the wrestling wasn't a factor. But no, I honestly thought that Lyoto Machida was going to win. Reasons being, it's a 5-round fight. Lyoto Machida's done those before, quite a few actually. Former champion. I thought he was going to dance around Yoel Romero, and then when Romero would gas, which he has in the past, I mean, in the Kennedy fight, he was pretty much gone. And in other fights as well, I believe it was against... I think it was Derek Brunson, where he caught him late in the third. And Yoel does finish fights late, but I just thought, man, if he gasses against Lyoto Machida, who at one point was like the anti-wrestler, I thought Yoel Romero was going to get knocked out. I think it's one thing to gas against like a Derek Brunson or you know, say even a Tim Kennedy. It's another thing entirely against Lyoto Machida. And man, I was completely wrong. The crazy thing about this fight is Yoel Romero. I know you always love mentioning how it's almost like watching a Street Fighter character because he's got such a wild style. I would say Yoel Romero, other than the cardio aspect, by far the best athlete that Lyoto Machida has ever faced. Like, Lyoto Machida's faced a lot of really good fighters, a lot of talented strikers, wrestlers, etc. But I'd say Yoel, by far, the best athlete. Like, just a freak athlete.
Yeah, freak athlete and just unbelievable. I mean, just talking about the fight, just some of the advancements and improvements that he made were really visible in the fight. And he went for some crazy things, Cass. Some crazy knees, just an absolute physical specimen. And he's not a young guy either. I believe he's 38 years old, but he just looks great for his age. Just a couple of things about the fight for me. You know, Lyoto Machida, as everybody knows by now, he's a counter fighter. He waits for you to throw your punches, and then he'll counter you. He's not exactly an aggressive fighter. He's not going to come forward. He's going to wait back, wait for you to throw your punches, and then he's going to throw his shots. But the problem with that style is a lot of it comes with reflexes. You need to have the reflexes for that style. It's not just skill, it's reflexes. You have to see when that punch is coming, and you got to counter at exactly the right time. And there's also a lot of head movement involved because obviously the person's going to keep coming forward. So you got to have what it takes to move around and avoid the punishment that will come if you don't move your head out of the way. And unfortunately, it's not a style that works for guys as they get older because reflex is one of the first things to go for a fighter. And I don't think Lyoto Machida is old by any means, but I just think that style hasn't worked as well for him in his last couple of fights. Obviously, his last fight was against Luke Rockhold, and we all saw what happened there. But I think this is one of the first fights where I was watching Lyoto Machida, and I was thinking that he just didn't look as quick. His style just didn't look as effective, and he wasn't really countering effectively. I mean, Romero really got in there. He was able to land a lot of strikes on Machida. You don't usually see that. And I was really impressed with Machida when he fought Chris Weidman, when he was working with Rafael Cordeiro over at King's MMA, because he was working on an aggressive style. And we saw that for a little bit of the Chris Weidman fight, where he was sort of beginning to go forward and start landing more punches on guys and not just wait back and counter punches. And I was happy with that because I thought, hey, this is a great way for him to modify his style as he gets older, because his reflexes will be an issue with the style that he has now. And I was a little bit disappointed to see that he sort of abandoned that in his last couple of fights. Well, the Luke Rockhold fight, we all saw what happened there, but in this fight in particular, I would have liked to see him come forward more. And I know that Yoel is a wrestler, but what he was doing in that cage, it just didn't work, and unfortunately, he paid for it. I don't know what you thought, Cass, but what were your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make about Lyoto's style and, the way guys use reflexes and rely on their reflexes when they get older. It just doesn't really work out for them. I think it's funny because people always look to Chris Lieben as an example of, like, you don't really want to have a style like that because it's going to make for a short career. If you take so much punishment, it's going to end up really badly. You may be punchy. You may sound punch drunk. And they say you want to have a style kind of like an Anderson Silva, kind of like a Lyoto Machida, where you don't take much punishment. But it's interesting because once those guys get older and the reflexes stop, it usually leads to quite a lot of unsatisfying performances, and you can see a lot of knockouts sort of coming in a row because once those reflexes gone, a big part of their game is essentially gone. It's pretty much what's happened with Lyoto Machida, and I know people are saying that he's past his prime after the Luke Rockhold fight, and I was a bit hesitant to say that and jump on that bandwagon because, the fight to me, it was over pretty quickly, and super impressive performance by Luke Rockhold, but, people talked about Lyoto Machida slipping, etc. This fight for me was the one where I kind of went, yeah, Lyoto Machida is definitely getting up there in age, not necessarily in, normal people's age, but just in fight age, and I think it showed in this fight. Yoel Romero, on the other hand, he's like the Benjamin Button of MMA because he's 38, and I feel like I don't even think he's reached his prime. He looked so good. He looked so calm and composed. He really picked his shots. And then when he needed to, or not, I wouldn't even necessarily say needed to, but when he wanted to, he had these bursts. There was that moment where he jumped off the cage. He was so creative as far as covering distance. I think the round was about to finish. He kicked off the cage, went for a punch, and then went for a takedown just as the bell sounded. There was that moment where he went for like a crazy knee and then changed distance as if he was going to go for a takedown. And I think, people always talk about Lyoto Machida with an unorthodox style. I think Yoel Romero has a crazy unorthodox style. Like you always say, he's almost like the real-life street fighter. And then for him to... the first real takedown that he actually committed to, and that's another thing I was amazed. I couldn't believe that Yoel Romero didn't go for a takedown until really the third round, and he was content to stand up with Lyoto Machida and was actually having success. That's the other crazy thing. And then the first time he actually committed to a takedown, it's almost like Lyoto Machida had no hope of stopping it. Even though Machida does have, good takedown defense, he obviously got taken down quite a bit by Chris Weidman, but he does have that sumo background, and generally speaking, good takedown defense. He just absolutely no match for the former Olympic wrestler Yoel Romero. And then as soon as he took him down, got him with those short elbows, I didn't exactly watch the replay or count how many seconds, but it was such a minimal amount of time from being taken down to being unconscious. Like, it just happened so quickly, which makes me think, like, Yoel Romero, he really does have that killer instinct. When he needs to capitalize, he absolutely does, much like against Tim Kennedy. So, and I think the difference between that Tim Kennedy and this fight was that there was so much controversy. In theory, a knockout over Tim Kennedy should be a signature win for a guy coming up in the ranks like Yoel Romero, and I think it was just completely marred by all the other stuff that happened, the grease gate, the glove holding, this and that, the backstage confrontation. So this is definitely Yoel Romero's signature win. This is the one that puts him up there, and man, he's got to be like one of the next contenders for the belt. He's right up there. I think now is the time to make Jacare versus Romero almost the forgotten fight.
Oh, for sure. It'll be a great fight. And this is the fight that if he wants, at the moment in his career, if he wants to get his kids and sit him down when he retires, out of all of his fights, this is a fight that he wants to show, because I saw a different side of Yoel Romero. I always knew that he was a dangerous guy. Obviously, we always knew he was a great grappler. But the way he put it all together today, it was just absolutely amazing. It was very, very impressive. And it's interesting because Lyoto Machida, again, he was such an impressive fighter. He did so many great things, so many great fights, but he's getting in that position now, like a lot of the older guys like Rampage Jackson and Dan Henderson even perhaps, where he might have to just start having fun fights, because it just doesn't look like he's going to be in the title picture anytime too soon after this loss. And also, what's going to happen? Is he going to switch up his style a little bit and realize that he can't rely on his reflexes anymore? Is he going to work in some other stuff? Will he work with Rafael Cordero, maybe have more of an offensive game? Because these are the questions that I'm interested in when it comes to Lyoto Machida, because who knows how many years he'll have left if he keeps, having fights like this.
Yeah, and the way that these knockouts are racking up, I don't think Lyoto Machida's ever had the most amazing chin. He never had a granite chin. He was just very good at avoiding punishment. But these knockouts are starting to really rack up. And one thing I want to mention also, it was the left hook that was that Yoel was countering with, and that's always been Lyoto Machida's weakness. Jon Jones, the same punch that Jon Jones dropped him with, the left hand. So, you know, in a way, Lyoto Machida, they caught in the puzzle. The puzzle's been cracked. The puzzle's been solved. You know, he's not that guy that. And I think sometimes I live in the past, and I think Lyoto Machida was champion in what, 2009, 2010. That was like 5-6 years ago when he knocked out Rashad and made him do the stanky leg. So that Lyoto Machida is essentially gone. And I think he's kind of gotten to that gatekeeper level because, you know, he's been very inconsistent his last few fights. 2 knockouts back to back. I don't see him fighting for a title anytime soon. And it's funny because you would never really put Lyoto Machida and Michael Bisping in the same place. You always kind of thought, oh, look, Lyoto is the former champion. No, he should be fighting for a title, or he should be like one fight away, especially in the middleweight division. But I think they're almost in the same place in the sense that they're both getting older, and not even talking about skills or anything like that. But these are 2 guys that I don't know if they'll ever fight for a title again.
Yeah, and it's crazy, especially in the case of Michael Bisping, who's such a huge name. We've had so many guys fight for the title who didn't not deserve it, but just didn't really do much in the division. So crazy to think that that's what might happen. But who knows what's going to happen, Cass, in terms of matchups. I mean, maybe a fight between those 2 guys could be an interesting one. But yeah, just not sure what's going to happen in the future for Lyoto Machida. So what are you thinking? Yoel Romero versus Jacare next, and the winner of that gets the title shot.
Yeah, well, you've got Luke Rockhold next, which is great. I'm fine by it. I'm really happy about that because, like, I know a lot of people were talking about, oh, Jacare versus Chris Weidman. He's you know, Chris Weidman's weakness. I much prefer to see Luke Rockhold. So, but then it's like, well, what do you do with Jacare? In theory, he should be next, and he was next. He was going to get that title shot, and then, you know, the whole Vitor Weidman fight got delayed and things like that. So, in theory, Jacare should have already had a title fight, or in theory should be like training by now for a title fight, but he's not. He got passed over for Luke Rockhold. Yoel Romero just knocked out Lyoto Machida. In theory, I'd be happy with him getting a title shot if Jacare wasn't there. I don't think it's fair for Jacare to fall even further down the ladder. So I think make that fight. It's the fight that we're going to make originally, and that's an exciting fight. You've got 2 guys that are kind of like the total package. We don't know much about Yoel Romero's jiu-jitsu, so to speak, but he's got fantastic wrestling, he's got knockout power, and he's a hell of an athlete. And Jacare also, he's like a super athlete as well. Amazing ground game. You know, he's got knockout power, his striking, his wrestling are 2 things that he's improved a lot over the last few years. So you've got 2 guys. I'm not the biggest fan of having 2 title contenders eliminate each other, like say, Rumble Johnson, Alexander Gustafsson, because they both could have gone on to fight for the title. But in this case, I think it makes sense. I don't think there's anyone else for Yoel Romero to fight. Like, what are you going to do? Put him up against like a Michael Bisping or something? I think you need to make that fight. Jacare, Romero, whoever wins is the next contender. And I think honestly, anyone who loses, whether it's Romero or Jacare, they're not going to fall that far anyway. I think they're that good a fighter, or that good fighters, that they'll be able to come back and get a title shot anyway. So to me, that's the fight that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, with Romero being 38 years old, it's definitely a case of if he does fight Jacare, then bang, he gets to fight for the title certainly next and not have to be in this whole situation where no one knows what's going to happen next and there's all these guys potentially fighting for a title. So speaking of the middleweight title, Cass, obviously terrible news coming out from New York, how MMA doesn't look like it's going to be legalized there anytime too soon. And obviously Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman was supposed to headline or be one of the main fights in the UFC New York card. Now it doesn't look like it's going to happen. So now where do you slot these guys? Well, I mean, it's a terrible
I know
situation.
where this is going.
It's a terrible situation, but I mean, around the same time, UFC 193 in November in Melbourne, possibly at Etihad Stadium, which is, for everybody that listening at home, repeat it with me, about 56,000 people. Possibly it could be one of the bigger UFC cards they've ever had. What do you think? Do you think this thing has legs now? Because where do you put the guys?
No, yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I think the UFC were really banking on having them headline Madison Square Garden. And we've spoken about on the show before, well, if that doesn't happen, if it doesn't get legalized in New York, and, you know, again, heart goes out to all the people in New York because that sucks. I feel like we've got something that you guys don't because we just got it legalized here in Melbourne recently. But, I mean, to me, it makes sense. We are going to have a title fight. UFC 193 is going to have a title fight, possibly even 2 title fights. I think, Chris Weidman versus Luke Rockhold makes perfect sense because it's a big fight. Like, if you're going to try and sell out a stadium, and as Tom Wright always says, you only get one chance to make a first impression. You need a big fight. I think Demetrius Johnson is a fantastic fighter, but I just don't think he's the right guy to have in a main event here in Melbourne, Australia, because just the feedback, the things that we hear. I remember when we went to I think it was UFC on FX2 or something like that, where you had the flyweight tournament. There was a lot of people complaining about the flyweights. Again, not my personal opinion, but I just think if you do want to get 56,000 people, you need a big name fight. Now, Luke Rockhold, the Aussie fans know him because he fought against Michael Bisping last year in November. They booed him a lot, but I think against a guy like Chris Weidman, they may really embrace him. And then you got Chris Weidman, who's the champion. People know him in general. So I think that's a great fight. And you know what I'm really hoping for? I'm hoping that here's a sort of dream scenario. There's obviously a lot of people from the UK and obviously Ireland here in Australia. So if Conor McGregor, say, wins the title against Jose Aldo, and that's a massive if, it'd be fantastic to get him down here for the Melbourne card. I know a lot of people might be thinking, what are you talking about? He's going to be in Ireland, not Melbourne. Well, they're not that sure about putting him in Ireland. Dana White has said before that if they do it, not as much of the media will cover it, and they may lose money, etc., etc. But here, with the Irish population that we have here in Australia and Melbourne especially, I think that'd be another great fight if you're going to do 2 title fights.
Absolutely. And I mean, the last scenario, we still haven't gotten there yet, but UFC 190, Ronda Rousey defends her title. If she does win, my good friend Nick Walsh at the Daily Telegraph, he's been writing about this in a bunch of columns that he'd like to, and that there are rumors that possibly she could fight in the November card as well. So, I mean, hey, if a Ronda Rousey or a Conor McGregor fight or defend their title, and you also have Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman card, bang, there you go. Etihad Stadium. I reckon you could fill that place out.
Yeah, you know what? That's interesting because UFC 190 is August 1st, so you've got pretty much all of August, September, October, and then mid-November. So that's like what? My math is horrible. I don't know, three and a bit months. And I know Ronda Rousey likes to have her fights back to back.
Yeah.
She likes to just go bang, 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 bang. I think she was saying, like, when she used to do judo, they'd be like 4 in a row. She does things in, I don't know, a series of 4 or something like that. Don't quote me on it. So, yeah, that's not actually as crazy as I originally thought. Even though the numbers 190, 193 close together, the fights aren't that, the events aren't that close on the calendar.
Well, there you go, guys. So it's going to be an exciting thing to see what happens in the future there. But yeah, our hearts go out to everybody in New York. Obviously, a terrible situation there and just a ridiculous situation, Cass, because and I believe it's a similar situation as here in Melbourne, where it's legal in a boxing ring and not in an octagon. And you just wonder, how can something like that be? I mean, don't these politicians want to just take a second just to see what the sport is and some of the things that the octagon provides for these athletes in terms of safety? So if you are a fan of Submission Radio, by all means, write, tweet, do whatever you email, whatever you can, let them know your thoughts. Even if you don't live in New York, I mean, just the volume of emails or messages they get, I'm sure it'll help those politicians make people happy.
Well, just to shed a little bit of light on it before we sort of finish up for, actually that's something else we need to talk about, just before we finish this episode, I was reading an article done by Kevin Aioli, and apparently, like, I don't know how they've figured it out, but I guess by speaking to people and I guess doing a bit of a public survey, they've realized that they do have enough votes. If everybody votes, then MMA will be legalized. But apparently in America, I believe it was Thursday, and when they did the vote, it went over time, and a lot of people left for that day. I don't know what you call them, whether they're senators or politicians or whatever. I know nothing about politics at all. It bores me to death, but apparently that many people went home and left that when it came to voting, they didn't have enough votes for it to pass. So in theory, the theory is that if everybody stayed there and didn't leave, they would have gotten enough votes to push it through. And once it does go through, I don't know what the next stage is called, but I don't know, I guess when they need to pass the bill and then everybody else votes, apparently they've got more than enough, like heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of votes. So as if it gets pushed through, it will be made legal basically. But the big thing is getting it pushed through for consideration.
Yeah, and it's a big deal, even though we're here in Melbourne, Australia. It's a big deal for MMA fans, I think, around the world to see it in New York. I think New York, for many, many years, has been the capital of sports in a bunch of different sports, from pro wrestling to hockey to basketball. Madison Square Garden is, without a shadow of the doubt, one of the most important venues when it comes to sport. And everybody around the world seeing MMA at a place like Madison Square Garden will just help the sport even more so. But Cass, you mentioned us taking a break. People don't really know this just yet, but we are going to be taking a very short break here at Submission Radio for a couple of weeks. It's working in an interesting way. Break it down for the people, Cass. When can they hear Submission Radio again?
Yeah, so next week there's no big events, so we're going to be taking next week off, and then the following weekend is UFC 189. If you're wondering. No, I'm so confused with these numbers. Whatever, the McGregor, Aldo, Robbie Lawler, 89. That's the one. Yeah, it's the big one. Suffice it to say, the old Big Dennis and myself, because it's winter, we like to go out and do some snowboarding and some winter sports and things like that. But we figured we can't miss out on one of the biggest cards of the year. So we're going to be breaking down the card. We're going to be doing discussion like we are pretty much now. We're not going to have any guests because in order to organize the guests and this and that and send it out to media and stuff like that, it is a lot of work, and we love doing it, but we're going to be doing it basically from location. So Dennis and I will be, I don't even know where we'll be out at that time. We'll probably be somewhere on the mountains, in a sweet cottage by a fireplace. Some inappropriate touching might be happening. But we're going to break down UFC 189, and we're probably going to get some journalists on there as well via the magic power of Skype as well. Those guys are sort of to be announced, but they'll be familiar voices, that's for sure. So it's going to be like a roundtable discussion. It's going to be like a special submission radio, something that we've never done before, because since March 22nd of 2014, which was our first episode ever, we have never done an episode without at least one guest. And our first episode, for some fun facts out there, was Alice Overeem, Mark Bocek, and Tyron Woodley. Not bad for a first ever episode, but this one, no specific guests. We'll get some journalists on there, some familiar faces from some big websites that you guys know and love, and we'll all just talk about UFC 189, and we'll break it down for you guys. And then I believe we'll be back officially the following week after that, but it sort of remains to be seen. But we're not going anywhere. We'll be back probably in a couple of weeks.
There you guys go. So a lot of stuff to look forward to still from Submission Radio on the channel. As always, the technique of the week. Check it out. YouTube.com/Submission Radio AU. And check out Hex Fight Series. If you're local here in Melbourne, it's a great company that was one of the first companies to actually have fighting in a cage once it was legalized here in Victoria. They got a great event, Patterson versus Brights. It's going to be on July 18th. Our very own Shawn Davies that you just heard from before will be on the card. We'll be there ourselves again. If you see us, please come up to us. We get a bunch of people telling us that they see us, messaging us, but they're too shy to come up. It must be something to do with our faces, Cass. We must have serious-looking faces. But please, if you see us, we could be eating, we could be in the bathroom stall, whatever you want. Come up, say hi. We love chatting MMA. We love chatting to you guys, and we love hearing your thoughts. And that's, again, at www.hexfightseries.com.
Oh, and one more thing before we go. We've got something fun, just some brand new content coming out. We're going to release it next weekend. There will be no episode, but stay glued to the YouTube channel. We got a fun video coming out for you, and it's sort of a new direction that we're taking in Submission Radio. Everything else is essentially staying the same, but like we've been talking about, I want to bring out some new content. I'm just going to give you a little hint. BuzzFeed. If you like BuzzFeed, it's going to be like the BuzzFeed version of MMA, or MMA version of BuzzFeed. So brand new video coming out next weekend. And before we go, I know we've spoken quite a bit. Any last words for the fans before we cap it off for a couple of weeks, Dennis?
Yeah, Ted 2's out in the cinemas. Ooh. I watched it. It's a good watch. I mean, it's hard to live up to the expectations of a sequel, but if you just want to go into a cinema and laugh ridiculously at jokes that only Seth MacFarlane could write, jump in there. I mean, it's a great time to be had.
I'm glad you said that, because you are by far the toughest movie critic I know, Dennis. You have slain many, many movies that I've enjoyed. So if you say Ted 2 is good, I'm excited. That's good enough for me. Guys, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Stay safe.